to the Making Up the Numbers podcast. The Making Up the Numbers podcast is sponsored by Hope Technology, J-Tech Suspension, Revolution Bike Park, Ride Southern Spain, Schwal, and the world's finest independent mountain bike magazine, Singletrack.
We're doing it. We're doing episode 12 of season 3. Thank you to everyone who listened, commented, and shared episode 11 with Amory. It's smashed every record we've had with the pod. Fastest to 5K downloads, fastest to 10K downloads, and within a week was our most downloaded episode ever. So thank you for that. That was nearly it for season 3. But there was an episode that's quite close to my heart that I've wanted to do for a while, and I was hoping to get it done and drop it on Blue Monday. But the Amory episode got delayed a little bit. Then I got COVID. Then one of my kids got COVID. Then my wife got COVID. So we're a few weeks behind at the minute. So let's take this one as a bonus episode. And this episode is about racing, but it's not just about racing. It's about mental health, but it's not just about mental health. And I guess if I had to pick one word, it's about mindset. It's an episode I wanted to do for a few years now, but getting in the right headspace for it is hard. And I'm kind of relieved each year when Blue Monday passes and I can forget about it for another year. This time, though, somehow, despite all the COVID, we've pushed through and got it done. The main challenge with doing this episode was finding the right person to record it with. I thought it might be good to do it with another podcast host, so someone who's kind of familiar to the audience. So I talked with Davy at Hook It, the ride companion, and it was on the list of things to get done for ages. But then back at the end of September, straight after the Casus National over here in the UK, I had to drive to London, and I was listening to an episode of Dean Lucas's podcast, The Off Track Experience, with Reese Wilson and Charlie Harrison. And towards the end, just as I was coming into London, Dean talked about being pushed forward by his dad when he was a kid. And that just ticked a whole other box, which we'll come on to in a minute. But before we get going, there's a couple of things about me it's probably worth me sharing now in case I don't reference them later on. For those that don't know me, from 1994 till 2003, I was a pretty successful DJ. I never quite made it to superstar level, but I was always kind of in the level below that. I think I peaked at number 136 in the DJ Mag Top 100 DJs poll, which goes up to 150, but my wife loves to actually take the piss and say, you never actually made it in the poll, did you? But I played alongside I played alongside superstar DJs every weekend for that 10 years, the likes of Pete Tong, John Digweed, Tiesto, Lauren Garnier, the list goes on and on. And for those not familiar with the DJ world, in downhill terms, I wasn't a Greg Minnaar or an Aaron Gwynn or even a Dean Lucas, but I was in the tier below that. And part of the reason that journey ended was drug addiction. And then when I finally managed to get that under control, I suffered from manic depression and basically destroyed everything I'd built up to that point, including my first marriage. And age 32, I had to completely start again. Since then, I've remarried and had a couple of kids, built a pretty successful agency. And as well as doing this pod, I now guest lecture at schools and universities around the UK about entrepreneurship, about life, and some of the lessons I've learned along the way. And when I'm doing those lectures, the first thing I always talk about is how growing up, the words me and my sister would constantly have ringing in our ears were, and I have to adopt my dad's thick Yorkshire accent here, so think Steve Pete, Dean.
Okay, hit me with it.
Get the send forward, have a go. They never knows, they might like it. Any ideas?
That's pretty good.
Any idea what that means?
I think the gist is just have a crack at it.
Yeah, that's right.
You might be into it. You might enjoy it.
Have a go, try new things. You never know what might happen. You might like it. And we weren't allowed to sit on our hands ever. We were pushed forward into everything. Dean Lucas, welcome to the show. Would you like to start by recounting your story of your dad pushing you forward? Because when I heard that, I was like, man, this is so similar.
How are we going anyway? Are we good?
Yeah, we're good, mate. We're good.
It's good to be here. The thing about there, like you talk about mentors and getting pushed by the right people, and like I think mentorship of people is like it's huge, like it's massive. And I was lucky enough that I had like really good mentors growing up. Like obviously your dad's a crucial role in your life, and he was they didn't really push me. Like they never like pushed me into anything, which was good. They kind of gave me the tools that if I wanted to do something, they were kind of like, what do you want to do? Whatever you do, we'll support you. But like, we want you to do something, but they never said you've got to do this or ride or anything like that. They just provided us, I guess, with the tools of what we needed. Like I wanted to ride motocross, so they brought us motorbikes and we had a paddock so we could ride around. But there was never any like, you've got to do this or you got to do that. It was very much like giving us the option to do what we want, and then the tools to then get better at it and grow. But they pushed us by just doing themselves. Like Dad he was an inventor. He built sawmills and traveled around the world, and he actually built his own helicopter from scratch out of boxes. And like having someone like that in your life that kind of shows you that kind of anything is possible, or like puts that you can do it attitude in like your mind, was pretty. Like he would never say to it, like, you need to do this, we need to do that. But just from him doing it and you seeing it, like seeing your dad build a helicopter from bolts in the shed is pretty like, oh shit, if he can do that, like what can I do? So it builds that idea in your head that like anything kind of is possible. And I think that's very like understated now, that like a lot of people don't have that. They don't have someone saying that they can do it. And sometimes that's all you need. Like you just need someone to tell you, a friend, a brother, a dad, anyone, like someone that you look up to or respect. And if they just go, hey, you can do this, then you start questioning it yourself. And then you go, hey, maybe I can do this. And that could be with anything. Like you can relate that to riding, you can relate that to a business, anything. It's like, if you've got someone in your ear, like, come on, you got this, like you can do it. I've seen you do other stuff like this before. And then it's just like, oh, okay. And then you have that self-belief in yourself. And as soon as you got self-belief, man, like you're onto some good stuff then. So I think just as a kid, I just had that. And my mum was super supportive as well. She was like, again, just, we were always traveling. We were always exploring, and that opened up my mind a lot as well, which was really cool as a kid. So they gave us this like playground of like what that is the world pretty much, like going to different countries and being so free and open. So I think, that was a massive thing to have a mentor like that in your life. And like, I think a lot of people might not like have their parents. So it's like, if you've got an older brother or even like older, it doesn't even have to be older, but just someone that you look up to or like inspire to be, it's like, look at that person, look what they're doing, and then learn from them and go forwards. Like, and then I think it'll just shorten your learning curve. Like I see people now, and it's like they find like a teacher or someone like that, and you see when they latch onto them, how much they progress and how quickly. And I'm sure you'd get that in your lectures. You'd probably have people come in, and then after a while they're picking up certain things, and they're like, "Oh, you've just shot forward now." Yeah,
you get different questions at the end that people. Generally, the ones for me are people say like, I didn't realize I could still do something without being. People think that they're limited because, for example, like I wasn't particularly great at school, but I've gone on to find a different career path, if you know what I mean. And people feel as though they're a bit restricted. Oh, I'm not very good at this, so.
But it's a story you tell yourself. It's like that internal voice. And then when you get pressure from other people also reinforcing that, it's pretty quick to like fall down that hole of like, poor me, and I can't do this and I can't do that. And then by saying it, you reinforce it. Like I'm guilty of it. Like I always say, I can't remember names, or I can't learn another language, or I'm not good at technology. And it's just like, why are you telling yourself something that you don't want to be? It's like, you should be like, I'm getting better at technology, and like, I'm getting better at remembering names, or I'll like put in a system to remember, like, be like, all right, I'm going to try and do it this way, and maybe that'll be better. Because a lot of people say they can't do something, but it's like, have you tried to do it though? And they're like, oh, well, like once a week I might think about like learning something on my computer or something, but like, you're not really doing it. And like, if you're not trying to, like, you got to put in the effort or the systems to actually make the thing you want to do achievable. But a lot of people just say, oh, I can't do that, or I'm bad at that. And then that's it. They don't even try. They don't dive in. Did your dad ever mum and dad throw you into stuff though? Like the story that always lives long in my mind is like, I was a fat kid. I was like 11. When I was 11, I was 11 stone, which I think is about 70 kilos. Yeah. So, and I was like incredibly body conscious. Like, as you can imagine, like my nickname was Podge. That was like, everybody called me Podge. So we were on holiday in Turkey, and one evening we were in the hotel watching the evening entertainment, and I just I knew this woman comes out and she starts belly dancing, and I know what's coming. I'm sat there and I can sense what's going to happen. And as soon as she calls for volunteers, my dad's there. Over here, the lad will do it.
and he's like, when you just die inside, and you're like, yeah. So I can remember it to this day, and I remember it just being a sea of people, like probably, I remember, like 800 people. There was probably like 80 or something, but
it's still a lot. That's still too many. It doesn't matter. It's too many.
Yeah, and I had to take my shirt off, and like, it was just awful. But now there's this, and I don't know. I need to ask my dad whether that kind of thing was done with the purpose of just getting me, like, to stop being body conscious, or whether it was just done for his laugh, for his humor. But it's impossible to embarrass me. My wife's like, she's embarrassed me once in like, I don't know how many years. We've been together 13, 15 years, something like that. But
maybe it was to do that. Maybe it was to make you not embarrassed in the future, because you're like, we'll just get it out of the way early. We'll get rid of it now. Yeah, it's worked.
It has worked. And that's what I mean. Was it a cunning plan, or was it like just, this will be funny? No,
I reckon it was a bit of both. Column A, column B. Like, surely he was just like, this is going to be funny. It was like, and because you worry too much as a kid. Hey, like you worry about everything. Like, but
that's exactly.
I'd rather go through it then and get it over and done with, kind of thing. But yeah,
but you learn that there's nothing to be scared of, though. Like, it doesn't matter. No one remembers it. But people get so scared of getting out of the comfort zone, don't they? Like failing, and it must be even worse now, like with phones everywhere. And people recording it. But I mean,
I think people are terrified of failing, or at least terrified of like what other people will think of them, which is it's pretty stupid when you get to a certain age. Like you say, you realize it doesn't matter. And you don't realize, like I hate the saying, it's like, oh, you're either first or you're last. I'm like, you're either first or you learn. Like in failure, you learn way more than when you win. Like I've won races and it feels good, but you don't learn that much from it. Like you kind of like, you're happy and you sit in it, but like all our growth comes from pain. Like literally all of like when you're in the gym, it comes from pain. Like you're in emotional pain. Like how many times do you break up with a girl and you're just absolutely devastated and you're heartbroken and you don't want to do anything, and then you slowly come out of it and you have these new tools to overcome a heartbreak, and you understand people better and how to like deal with the next relationship, and then you go in the next relationship and you're like, oh, this is better, like I know how to be a person now, I know not to do this or that, and you like you grow up, and like you got to go through that pain of like a heartbreak or in the gym or whatever it is, but you become a better person. But people are so scared to have that heartbreak or feel tired or anything that they don't even jump in. They don't even have a go at it. I think you're better off failing and understanding what you need to do, and then growing from that, than spending your whole life saying what if or wondering. Like my biggest thing, if I die tomorrow, like I'm very content with like the life I've lived and what I've done and what I've seen and who I've been around, and it's been amazing. So it's like, I'm not going to go out and be like, oh, what if I did this or what if I did that? It's like, I'm pretty content with all the decisions I make and where I go and who I'm around. And like I truly love my life and love what I can do. And it's like, if you live a life like that, it's like, and that's all from jumping into fear. That's from like going after a dream and achieving it and kind of taking risks here and there and doing certain things. But like, if I could have just played it safe and stayed in Australia and I don't know, got a normal job and kind of put my head down and didn't do much, like I'm sure I'd have a lot of regret that I did the wrong thing. So it's nice not living with that. And I think a lot of people do, because they're scared of fear or failure or heartbreak.
One of the points I have in the lecture that I do is that vulnerability is a strength. So people think of vulnerability as being a weakness, like you're vulnerable. It sounds like a weak word, but putting yourself out there, kind of, making yourself vulnerable, no matter what it is. It can be making a video online, something where people can judge you. We talked about it in the episode with Valley about how she crashed her way through the first half of the season, and she was like, she's growing up in front of millions of people on TV. The strength, meant psychological strength that's going to give her, because she got through it. And the more you do, the more you doing this podcast, even, it's like, when you started, I bet the first episode you did, you were like, whoa, really nervous here. This could be really shit. And people will think, God, I'm really shit.
Yeah.
But just doing stuff, the more you do stuff, the more you make.
But why does that's the thing. Why does that matter? Like, why does it matter if they think it's really shit? Like I always say, it's like, if I'm enjoying doing it, why does your opinion matter? Like, obviously if I'm spreading bad things or energy or swearing or being like real, like if it's a shit conversation, like you kind of want to maybe like take some pointers and be like, how do we fix it? But if you're spreading what you want to spread and like saying the words you want to say to the people you want to talk to, like it doesn't really matter. It's like you're downloading it for free and you're like going to judge it. It's like, I always say it's like a shop. Like you come into my shop and then you complain about everything I'm selling. It's like, just don't come into my shop. Like, imagine seeing someone walk down the street, they walk into your shop and say, this is all shit. I don't like anything you're selling. It's all terrible. I don't want to buy any of it. And you're just looking at him like, okay, you can leave. It's free. It's like nothing's actually cost anything. You can go and like, I'm not going to buy anything, but I'm going to come back tomorrow. And he probably say the same thing again. Like, it's so stupid. It's like, I look at it like that and it's ridiculous. But you see people on the internet, they just come back into your store every day, write mean shit about what you're doing, but they're like, you don't have to be here. Like, you can leave and go do something else instead. But it just blows me away. I find it funny. So yeah, I don't try not to buy into it as much anymore. I really find it amusing, but I just don't try and look at comments on my phone as much anymore. I try and disconnect from all of it. It's like, if I'm especially in the podcast world, like I put out my podcast and there's no comments to read and I don't really even look at downloads or anything. I get real reactions from real people in real life. And it's such a nice, refreshing change from like a comment or a like. It's like, I put a video out, or no, a podcast, sorry, talking about like real ideas and trying to open up people's minds to looking at things in new ways. And I think there's real value in that. So if I do that, I don't really care about like a comment or anything like that, unless it's in person when someone comes up to me and they're like, I really enjoy this. This helped me through this part of my life. And I was like, well, that's awesome. That's real. That's genuine. And that's like authentic. And I'm like, that's what I want in life. Well, that's what I want out of doing this stuff, where I think like, all the comments and all that stuff, it's all just noise. It's just like noise that just goes away. Like we said, times, it's like, you look at what's posted on the internet like a week ago, no one knows. It's just, It just washes away. It's just like water going up on a beach and then flowing. It's just like, oh, new thing, gone. It's like it's like the slate it's there, but it just gets kind of cleared. Like you say, oh, it's there forever, but like who goes back that far? Like obviously you can put something up and it's really cool for like two days or whatever, and then it's gone. And I just find like it's so much on the internet, it's just come and go. And it's just like, there's nothing it's all surface level stuff, where I feel like a podcast, when you can be in someone's head for 3 hours or an hour or however long and really get a positive point that the person says out of it. I'm like, well, that can then go into their life in some way and then maybe improve it in some other way. And then if they come up to you in person and say thank you, I'm like, well, that's a win. That's going to keep the wheels rolling in the right direction. So yeah, that's where my love from podcasting, I think, comes from. It's like the actual genuine reaction you get out of people. And I enjoy stuff like this. It's just cool. Like, I think talking to someone like-minded who has like the same view and has the same passion and love for something. So yeah, it's just a positive experience in any way you kind of look at it.
Didn't you get hit with being an anti-vaxxer though, or something? Didn't you get misunderstood?
I posted a thing on my Instagram pretty much saying how I think we should look at all options to like combat this. So obviously, like I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I've been vaccinated. I think it's like, if you want to do it, you want to do it. If you don't, you don't. Go on with your life. I'm not going to push anyone. But I was just saying that we should also look at healthy options as well. Like look at eating better, look at looking after your body better. Like a lot of people that were dying had other health problems. So I'm like, if we can just make everyone healthy in general, wouldn't that help people that get sick and die? And people came at me with, you're against vaccines or an anti-vaccine. And I got dragged through the dirt, man. Like I got people like, I hate this guy. And I was like, whoa, like, and this was in the middle of like a World Cup. I saw this and I'm like, it's kind of scary because I see why people kind of don't say that much sometimes, because people can take things the wrong way and they can make up their own idea, and then you've either got to go put out these little fires. Because I left it for a while, like I'm not getting involved, this is stupid. And then it came back up at Snowshoe when I did an interview and everyone was like, fuck that guy, like he's an anti-vaxxer. And I was like, I just wrote exactly what I meant. And then most of the time when you call someone out, I'm like, why do you think that? And then they were like, you did this, and I'll explain it. And they'll be like, oh yeah, but this, and I'll explain that. And they'll be like, oh, well, it sounded different on Pink Bike when I didn't even, people won't even read the article. They'll just read like a headline and then they're like, oh, fuck that guy. And I'm like, when I like actually have a conversation with them, by the end of it, normally they're like, oh, sorry, man. Like now you say it that way. And I'm like, don't be a dick on the internet, man. It's not flattering. It doesn't look good. You just look silly or stupid. It's just say nice things or don't say anything pretty much. But yeah, I thought that was funny. That went on for like 2 World Cups. I like cleared my name with what actually happened, and then no one really cared after that. I was like, and then I kind of stopped talking about it. I was like, this is not positive. Like, it's just got to the point where it's just like, it's not going anywhere. It just goes around in a big circle. And I'm just like, I'm wiping my hands, going back to my little town in Australia and being quiet for a little bit.
So let's talk a bit about pressure and expectation. You've been racing since 2007. What were the hopes and dreams of 12-year-old Dean Lucas back then?
Oh, 2007. It's been a while, hasn't it? Pretty much just back then, I just looked up to Sam Hill. I was like, I want to be that guy. I want whenever he's cooking. Like, he was doing some pretty incredible stuff back in 2007, 2008. And to have someone like that, like, I'd say, like, I didn't really obviously know Sam back then, but that's kind of like a mentor or like an idol you can put in front of yourself to go like, I want to be that guy. How do I be that guy? And then you even start like, I remember when I was a kid, I like had the same gear as him. That I remember I got it early because I think I ordered it from America, and it was like this blue Troy Lee gear. And I remember watching the 3-minute gaps that Clay Porter filmed, and at the end of it, he had this Sam Hill bit, and I was watching. I was so excited, so I like went and put the same gear on. I went and rode my local track, and I like pretended I was Sam Hill. And I just remember I rode better. Like, I felt so good, and I felt so confident, and I was like, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like, same as him. He was world champion at the time and all that. So he was like the guy I inspired to be. And like, he was definitely a huge driving force to, I guess, light a fire under my ass to kind of put the work in or like learn how to go that quick or how to do that. And that was probably the goal back then, just to be Sam Hill, like world champion, race World Cups, actually be able to travel to Europe and have all the cool bits, have the black box stuff on my bike or the new Fox stuff or like anything like it was like, just a little kid. You just, big dreams.
Did you think you'd ever make it to a World Cup?
I didn't at the start. Like, at the start, it seemed like a bit of a fantasy. And then I started doing better at like just the local races. And it's funny because my friend, we just did a video at Mount Beauty, the race I did on the weekend. And I was there when I was 16 years old. And I remember I was like, I really enjoyed the track and I was riding really well. And I ended up winning under 19s, and I beat a kid, Tom Crimmins. I never beat him before. He would hose me every race, and I finally beat him. And I had this epic run and like came in the finish line and got sideways and almost crashed. And I thought I lost a heap of time. So I was a bit annoyed because I thought I could have gone quicker anyway. But I got to the bottom and I'm like real annoyed. And then someone comes up to me, he's like, oh, you just won by 7 seconds. And I'm like, oh shit, that's pretty solid. Anyway, then all the other guys, like elite guys, come down and they're all coming down. And I'm like, beat that guy, beat that guy, beat that guy. And there was like, at the time, Aiden Weiber was a up and coming Aussie kid, and they had like the Pinozzo brothers, and I don't think Josh Button was there, but he may have been there. But anyway, all these like guys that I'd looked up to still, that had raced World Cups, and Liam had been like he was on the podium at Junior Worlds and stuff. And I'd beaten them all as this 16-year-old kid. And I was just like, holy shit. Like, I just remember this like moment where I was like, oh shit, maybe I can do this. Like, it was like my eyes opened a little bit wider to the possibility of actually making racing your bike around the world like a proper job. So from that point on, I think it was just like, let's all systems go towards it. And then I think we made the call, I think it was 2012. I'd done pretty well at the Nationals and I was riding well, and my parents were like, all right, we'll come over with you and travel around, going like a bit of a family holiday, and we're going to do 4 World Cups along the way. And it's pretty funny because the first World Cup Val di Sole in 2012, I got halfway through the first day of practice, and I was following Connor Fear, and he tried to do a gap down the bottom off this rock, and I was a bit nervous and wasn't comfortable, and just try to follow him and try to do it anyway. Just cased it over the bars, broken wrist, broken scaphoid, like halfway through my debut at the World Cups. I didn't even get halfway through day one.
And you've got the family there. You've dragged
the family there.
To Europe.
Oh, I was like, I'm going to go home. I'm done with it. I remember going back to the apartment that I was in, and I was like, let's look in, like, couldn't obviously use my hand. I was like, let's just go home. Like, what's the point of staying? Like, there was a race at Fort William the weekend after, and then a week gap, and then Mont Saint Anne and Snowshoe. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to ride in a week. So like, what's the point? Like, let's just go do something else. Anyway, we just strapped it up and took a heap of painkillers, and like, because it was my scaphoid. So we didn't actually get X-rays, but I was like, it feels broken, but it's like I can probably still use. Like I felt like you kind of, when it's like sore, but you can still use it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next weekend at Fort William, I actually raced. I didn't qualify. I got 82nd, so I missed 84th, I think. 84th or 82nd with a broken wrist at my second World Cup, and I was like, okay, maybe we can do this. And then ended up qualifying at the next two. So I qualified 54th at Mont Saint Anne, and then like I think it got 40 something or maybe in the 50s. So yeah, then I was like, okay, this is real and we can do it. But I thought that was like, I didn't find out as well until like a year later, because I crashed again on the same wrist and they x-rayed it and saw that in the x-ray I'd broken my radius, like that crash. But then they said, oh, did you know you've got a broken scaphoid as well? And I said no. And they're like, well, when did you hurt your wrist last? And I was like, oh, that was a year earlier. And that's when I found out I broke it. So I didn't even know it was broken at Fort William. I know a lot of people that have broken scaphoids and they won't, like, it'll hurt, but they like, it doesn't impact them so much. So like, I'm not saying like it wasn't excruciating pain. It didn't obviously feel great, especially Fort William. But
so my teammate Binzi, he broke his wrist out at the Mega and strapped it up with an inner tube. He just like wrapped this inner tube around it as tight as he could and rode the Mega, which is an hour.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
But he took some tramadol, I think, as well.
Took a green whistle.
Yeah.
If you take painkillers and strap stuff, and like a really good quote of mine, well, not of mine, sorry, that I heard was, it's amazing what your body can endure when your mind's not making it worse.
Yeah. And
it's like, we think we can't endure much, but then you actually just don't think about it and you just like put your mind to a good place. It's like you can get through a lot of stuff. Like when I got surgery on one of my wrists, I was like, I just want to see if I can watch it just to see like what the body's like.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I got carpal tunnel surgery, and I was in this kind of this weird spot with my mind where I just wanted to push myself and see what like I could kind of get out of stuff and how far it could go. And it's just like, I'm just going to watch it and just try and go to this calm place. And I ended up going into shock while I was watching it. But then when I went into shock, I like pulled myself back out of it just like through breath work and focus and like calmed back down, and then like watched a little bit more of it, then it was done. And it was pretty cool because then like 2 or 3, oh no, it was a fair while. Like, it would have been six or 7 weeks after I got it done. And I could start riding again. I had a big crash and my body went into, obviously as soon as I crashed, my body went into shock. Yeah. And I remembered the surgery and I was like, oh, this is shock. Like when you're really like your heart rate's high, you're high in breath. And I was like just focused on my breath, calmed down, did a body scan, and just literally again, like the surgery pulled myself out of this shock. And it was crazy because people came running up to me thinking I was going to be in this like state. And I was just like, and then just started breathing normally. I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And like the crash was really bad. Like it looked so much worse than what, like when you saw it, you're like, he's going to be like ambulance, like get him out of here. And I got up and I was just like, oh, I'm fine. And it was just, I rolled out of it really well, but it was just like the not going to that panic state. And I think if you do have a crash or you are in one of those situations, like really just follow your breath and calm down and scan your body and like you can really pull yourself out of a lot of bad things. And that's something I've kind of learned to do now. It's like, if you go into something like that and don't make your mind buy into how bad you think it is. It's like, it's not that bad. It's like, and if you can trick yourself, like you can tell yourself, because it's like that little voice we were talking about before, how you tell yourself something. And as soon as you start telling yourself something else, you're like, well, that's what it's going to be then. You're like, I don't like hot, just say for example, because I have an ice bath and you hop in that. And it's like, you keep telling yourself, oh, I can't do that, it's too cold. You can't do it, it's too cold. As soon as you're like, oh, it's not going to be that bad, it's only going to be 10 minutes, I'll feel better afterwards.
Yeah.
Hop in, hop out. It's like, it's as simple as that really. But it's like that little voice is like, you've got to make him work for you. You don't work for him kind of thing.
I don't know how you did the thing of watching the surgery though. I had gallstones a few years ago, and I had to have that thing where they put the tube down your throat and endoscopy or something. And she was like, the nurse was like, you can stay awake if you want. And I was like, no.
I'm going out.
No, yeah, take me out. But the weird thing about that is, I can remember being out and feeling them. They widened the exit of my gallbladder or something. They cut it because it was too narrow, and that's why the gallstones were getting stuck. So but I remember feeling them cutting me inside when I was asleep. Like it's a weird thing. Weird.
Ooh, I remember it sounded just like hair being cut. Like it's the same sound when you cut hair. And the weird thing about it now, because my friend filmed it for a documentary video we did called Training Ground. I can't watch the footage of it. Like I don't like. I'm like nah. I watched it live. I'm done. I'm out. Like I won't watch it now. I'm just like no, not into it at all. Like I don't know if I'd do it again. It's one of those things where like I did it. I know I can do it. I'm out. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't fun. I don't want to go into shock. So I'd probably look the other way now. But yeah, it's just a point in my life where I was like, let's see where we can go.
So you've had like multiple World Cup podiums, which we'll come on to in a bit. But what's it like now when you race at home? Like, is it like, here's Billy Big Bollocks with his factory ride and his World Cup podiums? Like, you're expected to win. So you're the favourite, which must be kind of different to being at a World Cup. But you're probably not in that World Cup mindset. Like, you're not going do you go as hard as you do at a World Cup? Do you struggle with like getting yourself up for it? And what's it like if you don't win?
It's awesome. It's like I do really enjoy it. It is an added pressure when like if you win, everyone's like, oh well, he was meant to. Yeah. And then if you don't, everyone's like, what's going on? What's wrong? What's happening? So you do have that pressure, which I don't feel it so much anymore. Like I just really enjoy like the local races I do. I raced like the Victorian Downhill Series is like where I grew up racing. Like that's where I did my first race when I was 13. So I really enjoy going back, and there's so many young kids now. Like we had, I think at the race in Mount Buller, there was 200 entrants that were under 19s or below.
Yeah.
So it's like, and it's capped at 300. So it's over half the field's under 19. So to see all the new young kids coming up, it's pretty, it makes, because I try and put a lot of effort into this, like giving advice where I can. And this kind of comes back to being a good mentor. And I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons I come back so much, because realistically, like I don't have to come do the races. Like no, like Scott obviously appreciates the extra media and content you can produce with it, and I enjoy going there. But there's no, you have to do this or you have to do that. And it is also like I don't push World Cup speed at a Vic Series. I think it's like you're going fast. It's not like you're going slow, but I think everyone finds that little you kind of just. You flirt with that edge a little bit more at a World Cup, because you know that half a second could drop you 10 spots or 20 spots, where at a local race, like there's just bigger gaps, and I mucked that up, but I might lose half a second, but that's not really going to drop me even a position. So it does make you back off, but sometimes I think you almost ride better in a way, because you do have a lot of pressure off you, and sometimes you get into a good flow or rhythm of what you're doing. So it's really quite hard to say, but there is added pressure. But I still, like I said, I really enjoy it just for the sake of the people in the community that are at these races. Like I think everyone enjoys having me there as well, because I think I am a bit of a I don't know what you would call it, like a like a tangent thing to say, like, hey, he started here when he was 12 and now he's racing World Cups. And I always try and say that to kids when I'm either on the podium or just in the pits or whatever, like, hey, like you can start here and race this series and then get better and go overseas, and this can become a full-time job. Like this dream came true, and you can make it come true as well. So I think having me there as like a real life person that's just like, again, like I said, telling these kids that are racing that you can do this. Like I did it. I'm not special. I'm not super intelligent or was crazy fit or anything like that. I just wanted it. I wanted it better than everyone else that was doing it along with me. And I think that's the big takeaway. It's like, how bad do you want this thing? And it's like, you don't have to want it that bad. Like if you just want to come and have fun and enjoy the weekend and ride with your buddies, like I support that 100% too. But like, if you want to make this into a lifestyle and a job, like, what do you want to know? Like I'm here to help. And it's good that a lot of kids are kind of asking good questions now. Like I always hate when I think the ego gets a little bit in the way when kids come up to me and want me to follow them on Instagram or like something or do something like that. I seem like that's kind of gone backwards a little bit, which is good. And probably just because I talk about how much I don't like it on every platform. But it's just like, it's such a shallow thing where I think like, if you're a kid and you want to know something about racing or what I do, like come up and ask me and I'll give you the time of the day to do it. But when you just got to ask good questions, and like the good questions you ask are like what you want to know. Like there's not a dumb question. If it's something you want to know, just ask away. But yeah, I do enjoy that aspect of it a lot.
It's good to see so many kids coming through, isn't it? It's the same here in the UK. They're like seniors category, which is 19 to 29, and the masters, which is 30 to 39. Those categories are dropping off. Like the numbers are really down, but the kids ones, it's just crazy. There's like loads of groms.
I think COVID had a big role to play with that, because you imagine all the people that are just like, all the kids, and like, you can't do anything, you can't go to school, you can't do this, but you can go exercise by yourself, and here's a bike, so away you go. So I think it's great. I think it gives kids a connection, a purpose. It's a perfect tool to actually like encourage people to get together and go for rides, and you're more out in nature and you connect with that. I think it's like cycling in general is like, for health, mental and physically, it's huge. It's a massive help for kids, and it definitely gave me a purpose when I was younger, because I was in like a small town where not really that much went on, and I know a lot of people do go into like drug addiction, and like you said with the DJing thing, it was something that like you struggled with as well. And it's just like, I feel like a lot of people I knew from small towns, you get bored, you don't have a purpose, you don't have a goal. What am I going to do? Oh, I'll start drinking. Oh, I'm drinking a bit more. I'm doing drugs. And then you fall into, it's a slippery slope where cycling kind of pulled me out of that and gave me a purpose to, hey, I'm going to go racing on the weekend, so I can't come get pissed at the pub for the fourth week in a row. And then you kind of set goals with that where you start doing better, and you're like, oh, well, maybe if I ate a bit better, I could go a bit faster, or maybe if I did this on my bike a little bit better. And then you just start to figure things out, and you're problem solving at the same time. Like, it's just so many elements to becoming, like I always tell people, I'm like, if you want to be a good athlete, just be a good person. Like, treat your body right, like look after yourself, and it all kind of falls into place. Like, it's not hard. Like, kids always ask me, like, what do I do to go fast? And I'm just like just watch what I do. Like, watch what people that you want, like you want to be do. Like, watch how I eat, or watch where like I train. Like, it was funny. I was at a race one time, and all these kids, I was staying with all these kids, and they kept asking me like, oh, how do you go so quick and all this stuff? And as like they're asked through the weekend, like they're all sitting down or like eating party pies or whatever, and I'm stretching like on a yoga mat and like kind of doing all this stuff. I'm down prepping my bike, and they're kind of just on their phones or whatever. And it was just like, if you just open your eyes, like, and stop asking me like, how do you go so quick? I'm like, I'm doing it. Like, just study someone, learn from someone. Like, you always like, if someone's where you want to be, just look at what they're doing. It's like and especially with social media now, like that is a positive that comes out of it. Like, you can be so connected with who you want to be, or like who you inspire to be, because they share pretty much all their life on the internet now. So it's like, you want to learn something, go do it. And if you can actually go see them in person, that's even better.
How did you deal with that bit of your life when you're 16 or whatever, and I don't know if it's 16, but when everyone starts going out, when everyone starts drinking, when girls come into your life, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And
all your mates are out doing that. How did you deal with that? Do you go off the rails at all, or was it tempting?
No, I was pretty good. I had a girlfriend when I was when I was 16 through to when I was 18, 19, and I lived kind of remotely out in the country a little bit, so it made it harder just to go partying as much. But the bike thing just kind of kept me on the straight and narrow, more or less, because I was like, there was a lot more racing back then. So most of the time you go out on the weekend, obviously, and if I'm away racing, I'm not doing it. Like, I still did party a fair bit, and I do love to like go have a good time with my friends and kind of lose my mind a little bit. But I think you've just got to find that balance of what works for you as well. And it's like, I definitely need that like loose, fun balance to my life. Like, I don't want to just do the same thing all the time, but it's just, you've got to know yourself well enough to know when you can push and pull back and when you need a break. And yeah, it's just like, I'm about to go to Thredbo for a race tomorrow, and then I'm going to go to national champs in Tasmania. And I just got back to from Tasmania today, because I went over and saw my girlfriend, and we went to like a little music festival, and I just danced and stretched and hopped on a slack line and didn't look at my phone for 4 days and felt amazing, read a lot. And I was just like, I knew I needed that now in my life. And I think a lot of people just go, I need to do this, and they just focus on one thing until they kind of burn out. So I think with alcohol, people just find that one thing and they burn out from it, where I think it's like, you need to balance everything together. And I think if you know yourself and actually kind of connect with yourself, I don't think people do that enough anymore. I think you need to like either get into breath work or meditation, or just have a quiet space, like just get in your own kind of head and work out why you want to do things. Like, ask yourself questions that actually, like, why am I doing this? Like, I know I do this all the time, but why? And how is it going to actually serve me in the long run? So I think if a lot of people did that and stopped and looked at things, they'd go, hey, I'm actually not happy doing this, and this, and maybe I should try something new, because this isn't working anymore when you really look at it. Like, I'm not happy and I'm not progressing as a person. So let's figure out a new strategy and move forward instead.
100%. So you've been slowly chipping away at the World Cup thing, and then 2015 you got a third at Lenzerheide. How much did that change things?
That was pretty special. Like that was cool. That was it was actually really cool because it was the race that Greg Binar became the greatest of all time. And I thought that was pretty cool. But it was funny, the week leading into it, we were in Morzine. It's the first I knew Greg not personally, but I just met him a few times, shaked his hand and all that. But at this time in Morzine, he was staying at the chalet or something, just at the base of Morzine. It's been destroyed now and they've replaced it. But we were there and he just kept playing drinking games. And I remember like 4 out of the 6 nights we were there or something, we were hammered. Like I went to like this Fox signing and he was making me do shots because he had this crocodile game where you'd press its teeth and if it shut its mouth, you had to do a shot. And I'd done like 5 shots or something. And then we went to this Fox signing and I'm just sent. And I just remember just like at the end of it, I was like, oh, was this good or bad? Like, oh, I was probably drinking too much. But I was like, oh, but Greg was drinking at the same time. And then went to Lenzerheide and he ended up winning and I got third. And it was just like, huh, that worked. Like it was funny, but it's like sometimes that I'm not promoting going to get drunk 4 nights out of 6 before you race a World Cup, but it was just funny just how it all worked out. And it was probably good having a bit of balance and letting your hair back and not taking it all so seriously, which probably helped a little bit as well. But I thought that was funny. But yeah, it was pretty epic to stand up on the podium. It was obviously a lot of people in their career don't get to do that. And it was like a lifelong dream. So to do it and then to do it with Greg as well after that week was pretty special and it was pretty funny at the same time.
So afterwards, did you feel like you'd arrived, like it had all been building up to this moment? Or was there a bit of kind of like imposter syndrome? Like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, you know?
Nah, I felt like I had the speed to like be a podium. Like I felt like when I put my best run down, which it was one of my better ones, I was like, okay, we can do it. And I know after that, like I was consistent. I didn't have another podium, but I think Wyndham was 2 races after it or maybe a race after it. And I remember I qualified like 13th or something and I felt good on the track. And then in my race run, I pushed really hard because I was like, oh, like obviously you get the idea of the podium in your head again. Yeah. And I actually mucked up really bad at the top and I think I lost a couple seconds, but then my time after that would have actually I would have been like top 10 and like right around it. So I was still in my head. I was like, all right, you've got to back it back a bit, but you've got the speed. And I think after that, I think I was always in the top 20, but I was like in the 15s to like probably, 15 to 10 kind of range most of the time. But I was just like, I was happy that I was consistent, but I was just like, I think Wyndham kind of got me a bit nervous because I went to push again and then I made a big mistake and I was like, oh, like you've got to, it's just that whole thing of just experience and knowing how hard to push and hold back. But I definitely felt like I belonged there and I felt confident with my riding as well. So it made it easier. Like a 15th seemed a lot easier than it used to feel. And I guess that's when anyone gets that momentum and that roll going, that like results just come easy because they are confident and they're almost like they're not searching for it. It just kind of happens. They ride relaxed, they ride loose, they get in the flow state, like it all kind of comes to you. So it's just trying to get back there. Like even in 2019, I got a bit of a rhythm going and I felt the momentum building again. And I was like, here we go. This is how you do it. But it can work in the opposite direction as well. If you have a little mistake, you get in your own head. It goes both ways. So it's like really, again, just comes back to listening to yourself and like knowing what you need to do and your triggers to kind of get you in that state where everything kind of comes easy. Because when it does, man, like racing World Cups, when it's all going right, oof, it's a fun job. But when it starts going the wrong way, it can be hell. Like you're away from your family, your girlfriend, all your things. You're not doing well. You might be injured. You're by yourself. It's just like it can be extremely glamorous and then extremely depressing. And in the course of a weekend or even the course of like one team, like someone can win an overall and someone can crash and break their leg in the same weekend. It's just like, and you've got this mixed emotions of 2 people in a group that have like, they've got to be high and low. It's like, it's so many emotions mixed into this sport and it all gets built up. Like
that was one of the things I said about to Amory that like at the snowshoe, you've got Thibaut and Miriam who have, just lost the titles basically. And you've got Amory who's back on the podium. It's like, what does he do? Like, do you celebrate?
Yeah.
Like
you always celebrate. That's the thing. It's like, I don't get this whole idea. It's like it didn't go your way. we got to crack the shits. Like that mentality to me, it's like build up the people that need to be built, like that need to be built up, and everyone should celebrate. But this whole thing, it's like, and it comes back, I think you wanted to talk about it later, but it's about the whole idea of like a experience-based mindset over a result-based mindset. And I think a lot of people put their happiness into a result, not into the actual experience of like creating the result, or putting like the tools in that you need to use to actually go get the thing you want. Yeah. So it's like, if you actually want something to happen, it's like, enjoy everything you're doing to make it happen. And if you're not enjoying it, do something else. Like, easy as that. It's like, so it's like, all these people like, oh, well, I don't like doing that. Well, it's like, don't do it then. Find something you like, do it, enjoy the process of doing it. And then at the end of the day, if you get the result you want, that's like the cherry on top. But if you don't, you enjoy the experience of actually doing it. It's 100%. Like, if you go in there and you didn't win the race and you crack the shits, I'm like, open your eyes. Look where you are. You're on the other side of the world getting paid to ride your bike down a hill, and you got a flat tire. Fucking poor me. It's like, you're still some kid's idol. You're some kid's god. You're someone else's dream. It's like someone is looking at you, wishing they were you, and you're there wishing you were somewhere else. And it's just like, I understand like shit doesn't always go your way. So like when it does, be really happy. And when it does, go, there's always next time.
The parallels between DJ and downhill racer are really, really similar. That, you know, that, oh man, I'm sat in this airport now. I'm hungover. I feel like death. I just want to go home. This is the how many weekend in a row that I've been doing this. And then you look around and you know when you get home, there's all these people who just want to do what you do. You know, that's their dream. That is their actual dream. So
everything comes with, like, it's not all sun. Like, I can't imagine any job that doesn't have a downfall of some way. Like, everyone, even like being like super rich and famous, and I was like, I wish I was them. I was like, you wish you can't go to half the places you want to because you get swarmed with people. Like, you want that? It's like Michael Jackson lived in a cage that he created. It's like he had to pay people to act in a supermarket so he could go there and buy things and feel normal. I'm like, imagine being in a supermarket full of actors paid by you, and that's a normal experience for you. And people go, I wish I was that famous. And you're like, why? Yeah. What do you want? That's all ego driven. That's nothing to do with like what? So you want money? It's like, you want to be rich? I'm like, you see so many rich people that are so sad. They're so lonely. They're in their big house with no friends and no one that loves them, no one that calls them. But, I swear I got a Ferrari, and like all this bullshit. I'd rather cry in a Ferrari. I'm like, I don't know. For how long? How long do you want to cry in the Ferrari for? I was like, I'd rather laugh with my family and my friends. Like, that sounds way better.
I think no matter, like, I've built an agency now. It's pretty successful. We live a pretty comfortable life, to be fair. But then it brings a whole new pressure, which is time. I just don't have time. I've switched from, like, you know, when you're growing up and you don't have the money to do the things you want to do. I've now gone to I don't have the time to do the things that I want to do.
But that's the thing you got to weigh, like you said before with your wife. It's like, well, what are you going to give up? Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, you got to have sacrifice. It's like, well, I want to spend an hour with my girlfriend every day. It's like, all right, well, I might have to sacrifice making this amount of money, which might make me not be able to get this motorbike or this blender or this something that costs a certain amount of money, but you get that out. And it's like, that's all. It's like, it's just a big mass equation, really. It's like, I want this, and this, and I have this much time, and each one gets allocated a time. It's like, well, okay, what do you want then? And like you said, the time thing, you don't get that back. You don't, that's gone. That's like, you think about this, like, just say you live to 80 and you see like your kids or your parents or something a certain time every year. And then you break that down into how many times over that 80 years. And like, you work it out, I don't know, it might be 100 times, might be 1,000 times, but it's like, it's limited. It's all limited. So every time you do something, you're like, what's the value in seeing that person or doing that thing? And if time's more valuable than money to you, then obviously you won't have as much stuff, but you'll have the experiences. And I think, a lot of people get sucked so much into this trap. Like I do as well. Like I always think about with racing, like it does take a lot of my time. It does push me to be alone a lot of the time and be away from family. Like I've got a little niece that I just don't see that much, and she doesn't really recognize me that well. And it's just like what's the value in that? And what's the value in having more time with someone like that? And like, that's what you've got to weigh up. It's like, imagine coming back and like your niece that you want to have a connection with doesn't know who you are. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, but I got this money from doing this job. You're like, yeah, that's kind of cool. But it all just comes back to your values and where you like your core values. And if, it's more valuable for you to go win a world title, have a successful business to you, and that's how you feel, like that's good, do that. But if it's going to see like, your wife or like a family member or being around an animal or anything like that, like that's what you got to do. And it's like, I don't think either one's right or wrong thing. It just all depends of like, who you are as a person and what you want to get out of this life. And it's like, you've got to make that call at some point and go, hey, I want to get this out of it, and this is what I'm going to do. So
I think the bit about my wife saying, what are you giving up? I think that might have been before we hit record. So just for the listeners, when I came home and told my wife I was going to do this podcast, and I unveiled all these plans that had formulated in about the last 15 minutes before I started talking to her. This is what it's going to be like. It's going to be like a radio show rather than a normal podcast. It's going to be about racing rather than people. I'm going to do it. It's going to be recorded in a studio in Manchester, all this kind of thing. And then she just turned to me and went, well, what are you giving up? Because on the weekend you said you didn't really have time for me. So what are you going to give up in your life to make space for this podcast? So just in case it was before we hit record, that is... But
that's like a lot of things though. It's like, because you only get 24 hours and you're like, all right, just say you get an hour for each thing, you get 24 things. Yeah. You're like, oh, but I want to do this other thing. It's like, well, you're going to have to drop something. I think a lot of people try and balance too many things and it gets a bit messy. So it's like, you've got to, like, you've always got to think about, if I put more effort into one thing, what's going to slack off a bit or here or there. And I know, like we were talking about, I really enjoy the podcast and doing my own, but it's pretty funny. Like whenever the podcast is going well and I feel like I'm getting better with all the tech and whatnot, I'm like, all right, I'm not cooking dinner for myself as much. I'm not eating as healthy, or I'm not doing this. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't want that to happen. So then it's like, it's where you put your effort in. Like I want to learn French, but then that gets in the way of maybe going for doing this. And it's just like, you've just got to find out what really you need. Like just find your negotiables and then do them. And then after that, everything else is kind of a little bit of a bonus. But find the things that actually make you happy and you get real, like a sense of purpose out of, and then the rest are all kind of, bonuses to do.
Cool. So you mentioned going back to the racing. I knew we'd go off the racing a lot.
Oh, that's why it's called the off track experience. We just go off track everywhere.
So I was wanting to say, and you touched on this a bit anyway, I was wanting to say that the route to the top is never the kind of straight line that people think it's going to be. So prior to that third in Lenzerheide, when I looked at your results, you were floating around the kind of 20s. And then you mentioned that after that, it didn't lift you right up into you didn't go from third to being on the podium every week, but it lifted you up into being into the high teens. So after Lenzerheide, it was Mont St. Anne and Wyndham, and you were 18th, 15th. How did it feel getting those results? Because those would have been good results before you'd had the third. But then once you'd had the third, did they seem a bit disappointing? What I'm trying to ask is, did it increase the expectation on you?
I didn't know. They still felt good. Like obviously it didn't feel as good as a podium, but I wasn't disappointed. Like I was happy to be consistent. I felt like even at the start of the year, like I had a 24th and I think like another result in the teens, but like the podium like was good. But then after that, I just felt like being consistent. I felt like, hey, this is a real thing now. And then after that year, I got offers to like from other teams and stuff. So that's when I actually went and signed with Intense. But the thing that kind of set me back was just before the start of, we were two races in 2016 and I actually crashed and broke my heel. And after that, it was just a bit of an uphill battle. Like you come back from an injury, I just felt like, because at the time I was like right up there with like Lucas Shaw, Loris Vergier, Phil Atwell, Mark Wallace. Like it was a lot of people, Mike Jones in our age group. And I was like kind of right around the top of that that group of people. So it was cool to know like where they've like, and it's always like the what if kind of thing. Like if I didn't break my heel and I did do certain things, and it would have been cool to see like the progression, but I felt like I went backwards for a little bit, trying to kind of find my feet again and kind of get back up to where I knew I could. And I think the injury thing never helps, and I don't think I dealt with it properly. I think I tried to rush back too quick and didn't rehab it properly, so that made it harder, and it's just a flow-on effect. But then when I feel like I do ride to my potential and get to my like where I need to be, like I feel like I can still be a podium guy. I think when I'm riding, if I do all the right things and I ride like I know I can, like I I'm confident that I can be back on the podium, but I'm never disappointed with the top 20. Like the guys, everyone's too quick now. Like a top 20 now is harder than it was, I think, 5 years ago, but it's never something I'm like I said, I'm happy to be there. I don't think you should buy so much into a result. It feels good when you get on the podium. Feel even better, I'm sure, if you won, but just being there, like that's still an experience that I enjoy. So it's a win for sure. Like I always say, like win the race before you cross the line. And I always like to be in the start gate. And a lot of time, I don't know why, but it does happen at Lenzerheide a lot. I have this moment where I look around and I look at these mountains and where we are and what I'm about to do. And I'm like, I'm about to perform in front of the whole world doing something that I've trained pretty much half my life for. Like I'm better at this than anything else. And I'm about to be seen around the world doing that and push myself to a place where nothing else will take me. And be in this mindset and this focus and this like in this state of mind that I can't get from anything else. And I'm about to do that, and I'm going to be annoyed if something like goes wrong. It's like I'm going to be like obviously like I'm saying that in a way I'm saying that as like you're going to let like a flat tire take that away or take that experience away or not the result you required like or thought you were going to get. So I always look around and I have this big smile on my face, and it's just always seems to, I don't know why in Lenzerheide, I think just because it's so beautiful there and it's such a cool spot, but I just look around and I'm like, I've won. Like I've won. I'm winning right now. I'm killing it at life right now. Like this is a cool moment, a cool spot in a cool place. And I'm about to go ride down this hill and just give it everything I've got. Like I'm pumped. And I get in that mindset, man. And just like, I just don't care about the actual race at that point. Like it just doesn't matter to me. It's like no matter what happens right now, I've won. And you get to the bottom and you got this big smile on your face and you're like, how'd you go? And he's like, who cares? Do you see how sick that was? Like I always refer back to when I crashed at Mont Saint Anne in 2019. And everyone thought I was going to be bummed, and I was pumped because I was like, I got in a flow state. I pushed myself. I gave it everything. I was like, I'm going to try and give it everything in this run. It didn't pay off, but I was happy with myself that I went for it, that I gave it literally everything I had to the point where I hit the ground. And I think that's all you can give. You can only give 100%. You can't give more than that. And I gave that. It didn't work out, but I didn't go home guessing. I didn't go home going, oh, I wish I did that gap. I might have pulled back half a second. I went, no, I went for it. And I think a lot of people, like you said before, with the fear of failure, they don't go for it. They just sit back and go, oh, I'll ease it down a little bit and just get through it, but I won't actually see how amazing this could really be. Because if it went the right way, dude, you don't know how it's going to go. Your wildest dreams could come true, but you got to go for it to realize that.
You got to take risks if you want.
Got to take risks. Got to go for it.
So, you talked a little bit about being on Intense? You joined in 2016 with Jack, and then Charlie Harrison came in 2017, I think.
Yeah, we had Nick Nesteroff and Luca Cometti as well. That was the first year, and then Luca left, and then we kept Nick for 17.
I think it's fair to say it was a team that outperformed expectations. It looked like you all clicked. You were all just enjoying it, and that there wasn't any kind of real pressure. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, we're all buddies. Like that's some of the most fun I've ever had. Not even at a race, just in general, just in life. Like we're just a bunch of kids traveled around the world racing bikes, and we had Jen, who was our team mum, and she looked after us pretty much like a team mum, and Bennett Guardia, and like the team was awesome. Chappie was our mechanic. Like it was just like a big family. It was such a cool time and cool, I guess, era in my life where like racing with those boys and traveling the way we did and having the fun we did, and it was I wish I had some better results. I struggled a bit. Those were the years where I struggled a little bit. But if besides the struggling, like the actual experience of traveling with those guys and doing everything, it made me really love World Cup racing. Like I really enjoyed those years with Intense. I was actually like I was quite sad to leave. I didn't want to really leave at the start. It was nothing. I wasn't trying to get away from anything. It was just I thought going to Scott was a better for my career and where I wanted to do and my branding and everything like that. But there's not a bad word I've got to say about Intense Cycles and Jeff Stieber and Jen and everyone. It was just, they were awesome. They were a really good team to ride for. And I think, just being on a team with like me and Jack grew up racing since we were 14, and to be racing around the world with a buddy from your same country as you doing all this and getting on the podium and just like it's a trip. It's an absolute, like, it's a trip to think that, like, you say, like, what would Dean think about me now? And I'm like, it'd be funny to see me and 14-year-old Jack racing at bar jug, and we looked at each other and was like, one day you're going to be world champion in enduro, and one day we're both going to get World Cup podiums, and we're going to be some of the fastest people in the world. And you go, dude, that's going to be pretty cool. And I go, yeah, that'd be pretty sick. And like it happens. So it's like and that's what I try and instill, I guess, in those kids at those races now, because it can happen. And it's just like, we both were lucky enough to do it and even be teammates along the way, which is it's pretty incredible, I think.
Do you ever play it out in your head? Did you ever, when you were 14? Like when I was practicing DJing, I think I was 17 when I got my first set of decks and learning and stuff, I would stand there in my bedroom and imagine that there's like 1,000 people out there, like dancing, and there's nobody. Yeah. It was just me. Did you play it out?
Yeah, I do a lot of visualization. I still do it to this day. Like I've had times where like I've been driving and I'll visualize like crossing a line at a World Cup, or like being interviewed by like a Red Bull person, like in the finish area, and like what I'd say, and all the people looking at me, what I've just achieved, and like I'll be like tears, like full on crying.
100%. Like,
and I'll be there. I'll be in that moment. I think like visualization's a massive tool that kids don't, or anyone doesn't use to actually like. I always joke about. So Edmund Hillary climbed Mount Everest, and they asked him like why do you want to climb it? And he said because it's there. Yeah. And I just think that was just like, it was so cool because it's there. And I always think with visualization, it's like, because it's there, because you can see it, because you can make it into a real feeling. It's like, as soon as you can see and feel that thing, then you can attach something to it, and then you can go after it. Like it's like, I just think it's so cool with Everest. Like he saw it, and he's like, it's right there. Like I want to climb it. It's like, if you can visualize that feeling, and like, it's right there. I want that feeling, and then you can go after it. So I think it's massive. It's so big.
I think some of it, it's almost like it becomes like a lived experience. Like, even though you didn't really do it, you kind of did it because you got in the mindset that you were doing it.
It's taken away. Like when I got that podium at Lenzerheide, it didn't feel as good as how I visualized it months and months before.
Yeah.
It felt good. Like, don't get me wrong, but my visualization when I was crying and just like, I've done it, felt better than me actually crossing that line and doing it, because I've already lived it. It's like a secondhand experience, even though it's real, but you need that mindset going into it. So it makes it that desirable that you go after it. You need to bait the hook so you catch the fish pretty much. Like let's put it on there. Let's put it like, yeah. So it is funny though that it does take away from it though.
Yeah, 100%. So let's talk a bit about 2017 Mont Saint Anne. You seeded 34th. You come down and you're in the hot seat. You're a couple of seconds clear of Mike Jones. At some point, the heavens up, and I can't quite remember what it was, but I think the top 20 were all racing on a wet track. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they came down. Like, I just need to state disclosure that it wasn't completely dry for me. Like, it's still like, everyone's like, oh, he did it in the dry and they did it in the wet. Like, it wasn't pissing rain. Like, it was an easier track, but we still like, it was thunderstorms all day. So the track was like, so it was still slippery. So I just want to put that out there. I'm not saying that it was the same, because it wasn't. It was a lot better, but it wasn't dry. It was like still quite slippery and hard to ride. But when the heavens opened up, I thought it was game over. I thought I just won my first World Cup, and obviously Mr. Aaron Gwynn thought otherwise, and ended up coming down and getting me.
So like, as you come into the top 5, you're still sat there in first, Mike's still in second. Did you think at that stage you'd won it? Is that...
there was a point where it was because it started raining and then it stopped again, and when it stopped, it turned more to mud, and then people were like 20 seconds back, 30 seconds back. Like, it was like, I was like, oh, I might have won this. But then it started raining again, and the rain actually at a certain point turns into a river, and then you can ride the river, and it's not as slow and slippery. So when that happened, time started to get pretty low again. So Danny came down and was just off me. And I think even Jack was the one that kind of got me here, because there was no one come close to me for ages. And then Jack came down and like went into 4th or something, and like was not that, like a second off. And I think it gave hope. It gave hope to everyone at the top of the hill that, hey, this guy can be beaten. And see, that's all it takes sometimes. Like, I kind of wish you did. Like, no, actually, I don't wish that. I'm glad he did come down and like kind of give hope to the rest of the field that, hey, we can beat this guy. Because then after him, I think it got a lot closer, because I think people had this belief in themselves that, hey, like, It's like when you see like what do you see like a king or something, and you're just like, does he even bleed, or like a god or something, and they see like you can, you're like, okay, like we can do this. Like it gives you that drive and that hope. And then after that, everyone else started to get closer and closer. And after Jack came down, I thought I could get beaten, but before that, when it was drying up and getting muddy, it was I thought it was all over. But when Jack came down, I was like, all right, this could go the other way now.
So when Aaron comes down and puts in one of the greatest runs of all time to take the win, was that a oh for fuck's sake moment, or was it a bit of a relief? Like did you want to win it? And I know that anybody racing a World Cup wants to win a World Cup, but did you want that asterisk kind of against your name, like say Alexander Fail had for Lords? I can't remember what year that was, but he won it. But
I think it was 17 as well. We had 2 races in 17. Yeah, same year. I didn't want to win. Hey, I thought about it like afterwards. Like obviously at the time, I think when you're sitting there, you think, oh, and I was having a really bad year as well. So it would have been a nice little which it did actually do. It did kind of kick me in the ass and gave me back that feeling of like, hey, we can do this, even though I got a lot of luck on my side. Like I believe my run would have possibly placed me around the top 10, but I wouldn't have won the race, like, or got second. Like that was, the rain came down and helped. But when I came down, I think I was like 3.5 seconds up on, I think, Mike Jones at the time. So like I had a big gap between someone that did race the same track as me, and that gave me like, well, hey, I was still on it. Like I know I wasn't second or first material this weekend, but top 10 was a goal for me, and that was realistic. So I mean, I was happy I did.
Alexander Fail's run, that was a podium run. I remember watching it and just being blown away. It was a podium run, whether the track of the straight stayed wet or dry. Same with you. It probably wouldn't have won it, but he would have been on the podium with it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That might have been better for him.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and especially the way Gwyn won it, I think like that run's like going to go down in history. And I think it's quite cool that I think if I won, it would have got forgotten pretty quick as, hey, that guy that won because of the rain, where it's like almost like when when Sam Hill beat, he got third to Maddie, I think that was in 2007. Everyone remembers that for Sam. No one remembers that for Maddie. And I was like, everyone's going to remember it from Gwyn, but I think it's kind of cool that my name's a little bit attached to that piece of like mountain biking history. So like, I'll take that. And it did make me feel good. It made me feel like this was a realistic thing. And I had a lot of doubt in my mind that year because I had a bad year. And after that, it kind of motivated me, and I went home and got some good training in after that. And I came back and I crashed. I crashed at Val de Sol, but I was riding good again. Like I think I was like 10th in time training, and I think I was sitting 7th in my race run right at the bottom before I crashed. But it was like, okay, like we're back. We can do it again. Like we can make this happen. And like that was the biggest thing. It's like Valentino Rossi's got a great line. He goes, if you're fast and you crash, you're fine. If you're slow, you're fucked. And that was the thing. I was like, I'm going fast again, so I'll be fine. I just need to piece it together. So then after that, I went to Worlds in Australia and I got 12th, and it was like, okay, we've got the momentum back. And then building off that year, that's when I came back and actually got a podium at the first round, like qualified second and then ended up getting third. So I was like, yeah, we can do it. But it all came from that belief I could from that second place, even though it was obviously the weather played such a big role. It still gave me the belief inside that it was possible, and that rubbed off to the next year and got me back on the podium. So yeah, it's crazy how it all kind of comes together and forms.
That's the next race I was going to talk about, Lozenge 2018. So as you said, you seeded second, you finished third. That's 3 podium finishes at World Cups. So one, you could argue that that's a fluke. It's a fluke. If you were playing mind games in your head, you could argue that somebody fluked a podium. 2, well, you got a bit lucky with the weather. But 3, you can't argue with 3, can you? You just, even no matter what, you can't argue. If you've done it 3 times, that's like, yeah, he's genuine.
That's enough.
Yeah. Did you feel like you were a genuine podium contender at that stage?
After what was it, Lozenge, when I got third and qualified second, that was like, yeah, like we can do this. Like I believe. Like everyone always believes, it's kind of like, it's almost silly saying it, but it's just like, I believe I like really could have won that race. Like the second's not that much time. And I did feel like you always make a few little mistakes here and there. And I almost felt like I tamed it back a little bit because I didn't want to crash. Like I wanted to keep that confidence building. So I felt like I rode within myself and still got that third. And I was like, all right, we can do this. And then unfortunately the weekend after, my had a mechanical failure at Fort William, and got knocked out for 2 minutes, and then that kind of season, that kind of ruined that one from that point on. And then you just got to come back and build back up from that place of like, can I do it? Because that's a big thing. It's like, it takes a lot of work to get that confidence. Like, I remember I had the number 3 plate, and I was like, I was riding with such confidence. Like, I remember I was following Charlie Harrison, and we'd be doing a run together, and he would start to pull away a bit, and I'll just catch back up. And I just rode better and caught back up. Like, I was just like, I just knew what to do to go that much faster. And I just felt like confident with my speed. And then after I got knocked out, and I actually wanted to race Fort William, which was obviously so stupid, but they obviously didn't clear me because I was out cold for 2 minutes. So I ended up getting cleared the weekend after, which I probably shouldn't have done anyway. I did like tests with reaction tests, and they were all slow, but enough to pass. But I was just dumb. But I did qualifying, and I remember I followed Charlie, and he just dropped me within like 2 corners, and I was like, I can't even hang close to him. And then I remember the real down point was I was riding the guy he was just doing the whole privateer thing, and he had gardening gloves, and he was riding this, he was riding a V10 or something. He rode a few World Cups, and he caught me and yelled rider, and he passed me, and I got to the bottom, and I went back to the pits, and I was in the back of the Intense van trailer, and I was just crying because I was I've finally got the podium, had this momentum, and then through no fault of my own, I just got thrown into the ground and obviously concussed and knocked out. And now I just I felt fine. That was almost the worst thing, was because obviously my reaction time was slower, and I didn't feel like obviously great riding. I was just slow, but it was almost just like, it's like you're drowning, but you're above water. And I just was just like, all this work, everything, it just all seemed like useless. And then every time I would race, you could see me like decline as the run went on. Like, I just get real tired. By the end of my run, I'd have like this throbbing headache where I was just like, I don't even know. It's like you've been out in the sun for ages, and you just like vision was a bit blurry, and like I was putting so much strain on my brain, and it was so bruised, which was, I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have even been racing, to be fair. But every race for like the rest of that season, I just remember finishing my race run, and I thought I was going to be sick. I was like, just felt super unwell, and I'd watch the runs back, and I would start off pretty good and like look all right, and then I'd miss points, and I would pump at the wrong spot, and I was just like, what are you doing? But it was just like, it's like watching the worst movie ever. You're just like watching yourself, and you're just like, and you know like where you could be. Like, I knew how I started and how I was riding, and then I just had to like kind of survive that year in a way. And it wasn't too bad. I've kind of picked up a little bit towards the end and kind of got my mojo back, but it was just a hard year to kind of get through after that. Like, I needed a big rest, because before I knocked myself out, then I actually knocked myself out 6 months before, just at home, just riding at home. And I think being so close together with the 2 concussions actually, I don't know, it didn't do anything good. Like, I feel like there's been like certain, even like memory loss in certain ways. Like, I try and remember certain things, and I was just like, nah, that's just kind of gone. So I think like that kind of scared me a little bit. And I think that kind of got into my head a bit as well. Like, how bad do you want to do this sport that can kind of bite you on the ass like that? So it was a lot of, I guess just being mentally ready to do it, not just physically. I think I was like mentally a little bit scared for the rest of that year, because of like, you get a hit like that. Like, I was I was riding, and then I'm unconscious. Like, I wasn't even like I've slipped out, nothing. It just all went wrong just like that. And it was, it was a scary thing to kind of come back to, and then try and build it in for the rest of the season. And then even going into 2019, it was like something that I think I got over it pretty well by then. But yeah, the whole of 2018, after the crash, I was a bit nervous racing.
Right. Well, let's take a quick break there. We'll be back with 2019 after these messages. On to 2019 then. No podiums, but only one result outside the top 20 all season, and you finished 10th in the overall. Were you happy that you'd found that level of consistency, or disappointed that there wasn't a podium in there?
No, I was just happy with the consistency. My big goal for 2019 was get to top 10s, race after race, like consecutive top 10s, and then top 10 in the overall. So it was pretty cool that I did both of those things at Snowshoe at the end of the year. So it was like I got 10th on the day, and that put me 10th in the overall. And like, that was my goal. And it was just like all this build up through the year, because I started off pretty well, and then like, yeah, never had a podium, or like, but just the way I approached racing that year, I had a lot of fun, and I was with a new team as well, and I think I was obviously met their expectation of what they wanted out of me. Like, they said before I joined, they wanted a top 10 rider, and gave him a top 10 rider, so they were happy with that. And I just got to travel with my my friend Darcy Wilkinson, who actually got me into racing. So he's my mechanic that year. So that made it really cool as well, having someone from Australia to travel with. And yeah, I just had fun. And towards the end of it, like when we raced, it was funny. I was actually Lenza height as well. Like I remember going there and I was like, I'm going to podium this weekend. And I was like so confident that I was going to do that. I just missed out and got 7th, and I was like a second or half a second off the podium. But I just remember my mindset going in, like how much I wanted to be at the race, like how much I wanted to be doing what I was doing. And I think like that was the biggest thing, that I fell in love with racing again, just to be there and just to do it. And like, that's the thing I try and do now as well. It's like, if I'm loving what I'm doing, like the results matter, and obviously you pay to do that. But if you're having a good time and still promoting the brand and being so positive, I'm like, that's a win in itself. So I was like going to these races, and they go hand in hand. Like every time I do well, I'd be really happy and I'd be enjoying myself. So it's like, if I'm happy and enjoying myself, I do well. It's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? But that's kind of just every race. It just seemed easy. And it's like, and you make it seem easy by your preparation, by your mindset, by your bike setup, by all that. Like you put in a lot of work to make it easy. But if you do all the work and you tick all the right boxes, when you get to the race, like it should just be fun. Like it should just be it's just like you're just hanging out with your buddies in cool places on bikes. It's like, there's nothing, like it can be stressful at times, but when you break it all down, you're having fun in the forest with your friends with 2 wheels.
100%. It's the dream, isn't it, really?
Oh, yeah, exactly. So it's like you look at that, and sometimes you need to like look at that. Like people get so carried away with sponsorship and like money and how they'd be viewed and all this stuff. And I'm just like, man, we're just riding bikes down hills. Like work that out first, and then once you got that sorted, then look at the other shit. But you haven't even sorted that bit out yet. Do that and then get back to me. But until then, stop whinging. just like DJing. I'm just playing someone else's records. I'm not a superstar or anything. I make the records, just relax. I'm just mixing it well.
So this is me observing as an outsider, but it looked like the pandemic had a pretty big impact on you as a person. I think you bought a van and traveled around Australia. And cutting to the chase, basically, it looked like you were living the dream. Was it as fun as it looked, or was it
It was better. It was even better. It was even so much better. Like there's so much, honestly, best days of my life. Like to this point, best days of my life. I came back from that World Cup season, and I was just achieved a goal, lived a dream, and got back and brought this van, and I traveled around and just like I was so happy. Like I was just like incredibly happy, like happier than I've ever been before, and so content with just like every aspect of life. I was just like literally on a high. Like I'd wake up and I'd just be like, am I still going to be this happy? Like I was aware of my happiness was like more than a normal amount. And I'd just wake up every day and be like, yep, sweet, let's go do stuff. And I just go, and it would rub off on people because I just go to these new things and have like this certain energy, which would then, it just builds on itself. It just compounds. So it's like, I'd go to like a festival, meet all these people. I was just like, I was real driven as well. Like at the time, because we're talking about like the whole depression thing, and I had this, I don't know why it came up, but I had like, when I was younger, I like dealt with depression as well and tried to commit suicide. And it was always something that hung around in me that I was really ashamed of, that I was real like, didn't want to share with anyone, because it was like, but like, why? Like, you had this good life, you had this good family, you had all these good things. And it was almost like you shouldn't even deserve to be sad. Like, look at all the stuff you've got. And obviously anyone that's dealt with depression, it doesn't have to make sense. Like, you can be depressed or whatever. And I just felt very isolated. I felt very alone. I had a lot of love, but kids can make things out of anything. And it's like, and we did grow up in a very kind of remote place. So I felt very disconnected. I didn't feel very smart at school, and I didn't feel like I had many friends. So that all really got to me. And then I just had this moment where I kind of realized, where I'm like, these are the best days of my life. I'm the happiest I've ever been. And it kind of made me think back to that point in my life when I was like, shit, I was that sad that I didn't even want to be here anymore. Like, I wanted to remove myself permanently. So I thought back to that, and I thought to myself, I was like, I've just gone back to this other point. It's like, maybe I should go share, because I feel like if I shared to kids or people, anyone that's struggling, they're like, hey, this guy was there and now he's here. And it's like, so if you're there, if you're in this spot where you don't feel like you can get out, or you don't feel like it's going to get better, and then someone comes and goes like, oh, hey, I did it. And it all comes back, I guess, to that mentor thing. If you got someone pushing you in that right direction, that, hey, you can do it, you're like, oh, maybe I can, and you can pull yourself out of it. So the whole thing was I was like driving up the coast and I kept having these like adventures and meeting these people, and it was insane. Like I can't even describe like how like life just flowed this little bit better and this little bit smoother. And then at the end of it, I ended up going up to the Gold Coast and I met up with Jace McAlpine, who runs Gypsy Tales podcast.
Yeah.
And I didn't tell anyone that I was like what I was going to talk about, but I was kind of just talking about like the point of life I was at and how I found all this happiness. And I ended up talking about the suicide attempt and like how I'm at this new happiest point in my life and what I'm doing to stay there and all like the triggers and all these things. And I just started like, I just let it all out and it just felt amazing. Like I just really just like took this trauma and this like vulnerability that you talked about before and just like laid it out there for literally the world to see. And it felt awesome. And it like fully just took that trauma out of my body and was just like, I don't need to live with that anymore. That guilt or that like whatever you want to call it that was inside me. And the reaction I got was so overwhelming by hundreds and hundreds of people like reached out to me and it said they helped them, and it lifted me up on this this high. And I thought it was crazy because like I was already happy, and then after like realizing I helped so many other people and so many kids and motivated people, and like just the messages that I got were like they blew me away. Like they really touched me. And I just remember thinking that I was like, the saddest point of my life where I didn't want to be here has now created the happiest point in my life where I'm so glad. And it was just realize this big pendulum effect where it's like was up here and it swung and it's just hit the other side. And I was like, how crazy is that yeah, like that, like 14 years later after it happened, that incident and that act would then in turn turn into the happiest. And I was like, that is insane. So I always tell people that are going through shit right now, it's like, hey, who knows, a year later, this might be the best thing that ever happened to you. Or you could pull the most happiness out of this incident or this issue or this whatever it is. And it might take a year or 2 years. Like we don't know. You never know exactly how long it's going to take. And hey, it might take 14, but that pendulum's going to swing back if you put the work in to make it.
So I didn't tell anybody I was going to do this episode. No one, talking about depression and stuff. I don't really talk about it very much. I don't really talk about. It was just such a weird time for me. So I gave up. I managed to kick the drugs, and then this weird thing happened, and it was so strange. It was like, I remember I gave up the drugs in August, whatever year it was. And, I started going, do you know this thing about a frog that if you drop a frog into boiling water, it'll bounce straight out?
Yeah. Yeah. But if you're going slowly, it will stay or hit what?
Until it explodes. And now if I was to go back into that situation that I was in then, I would know instantly something's not right here. But at the time, like everything. Yeah,
it's a slow progression.
Yeah. So it went from this, I was a drug addict for about 18 months and then I kind of weaned myself off. And then like the depression started and just these voices. Do you know a thing about inner voice?
Did you feel a thing like when you got off the drugs, did you feel like you were losing connection to the people that you did them with as well though? No. Like, did you feel like when you went off them and weren't doing drugs, you felt disconnected from like that identity or that group of who you were, like to be the party guy that did drugs? Or did you feel like it was just because you just actually were coming off the substance?
I don't really know.
Because I feel like sometimes it's like if you're doing drugs and you've got all your friends, because you probably would have been doing that with other people, like it would have been and I think I always look at like if you disconnect from that, because I think everyone just wants to they want to be part of something, they want connection with people. And I think a big part, if you stop doing the drugs, I'm like, I feel like you feel like a disconnection from that group and like your identity would be kind of lost in that as well. And I think that's where people, because if they don't have a purpose or an identity, that's where the depression can kind of sink into, come into play.
I think I got so deep into it that it just became me taking drugs in the end on my own. And it got really dark, really, really dark. But the depression started. I didn't really want to give up, I don't think. My wife at the time hassled me to give up. And so I did. And I wasn't really doing it for me. And I resented that, I think.
Yeah.
And then I just went, these voices. Do you know a thing about inner voice? Do you have there's this thing, and I didn't realize this until recently, but if I'm in the office and I'm working through a list of things, I'll almost like talk to myself about it. Like I'll go, right, I've done those 3, now onto those next 3. And it's almost like there's a voice of communication in my head. Well, do you have that? Do
I think everyone does have that. That's what
Right.
we even mentioned.
don't.
I think we mentioned it before. It's like you gotta, like, the voice that tells you, like, that's what you do. Like, it's like,
some people don't have that. A lot of
Really?
people don't have it. Yeah, that's what I discovered recently. That a lot of people don't have that.
well, who are they talking to then?
They
Like,
don't. They don't.
Okay, so behind your eyes, who are you?
I don't know.
That-
I don't know.
That's
I
the
can't
thing. That's
understand it.
the voice. I think they do, but I don't think they know how to articulate it properly that it makes sense to them. I think they talk to themselves like, well, that's me, and I'm like, well, who are you? And they don't know who that is, so they're like, oh, well, I don't have it. Like, I think you've all got the voice that talks to you in your head. Like, you've all got someone that says like, I want to do this, and then you do it. Like, like, I don't know how you wouldn't have that.
I don't know how. I couldn't understand that people don't, but apparently people don't have it. But that voice became really loud, and like I would talk. I imagine it's like when people say they're hearing voices, that's kind of what they're hearing. So I started doing some really weird shit. Like I would start living my life by whatever I saw. I had this thing. I'm living my life by my horoscope, and I would go to the shop in the morning, and I would purchase like a newspaper and read the horoscope for me. And if it said, you're going to be a real hit at work today, I was calling meeting with the bosses. I was pitching ideas that I had. If it said you're, let's think of another example, you're going to find new love today, I was, making sure I was talking to the new girl at work. It sounds
it sounds kind of fun though. Like, I'd kind of like to do that just for a week. It's like being a yes man. You're like, where's this going to take me? It would be funny. You'd live an interesting life. Like, I'm sure it's not long term, a goal to be setting, but day to day, maybe a week, a month, give it a go.
So this leads into kind of manic depression. So manic depression is typically it's in two phases. So you have 3 months roughly of mania, and then 3 months of depression. And so this was leading into the mania. And mania is just basically doing whatever you think, whatever you want. You like lose your ability to care what anybody else thinks. So I just went completely off the rails. I ended up having an affair. I went out back on the class A's again. I was partying. I just didn't care anymore. Told my wife it was all over. As I'm telling my wife it's all over, I'm having a nosebleed. The whole thing was just a mess, a real mess. And then we got to just after Christmas. This all started in kind of October time. We got to just after Christmas, and then it was like I woke up one morning and someone flicked a switch, and it was like the whole thing was a dream. And I remember it as a dream. And there are bits of it really weirdly that
So you just snapped out of it. You just came.
Yeah, and it was like I found myself sat on the floor in the house I'd had with my first wife, and like there was nothing there. All the furniture had gone, and I was like, "What the fuck has just happened? Whoa, what have I done?" And that's when the depression starts, because now you're like, "Oh my God, what have I done? Oh my God, this is crazy." She moved to Australia, never spoken to her again since. And it was just, and then 3 months of depression. So, but I don't know where the point I was trying to make with all this is. Oh no, I've remembered now. I've remembered. It was that when I look back now on that time, nothing can be as bad as that time.
Yeah.
So when I start something new, I try to use it as like a strength. Like no matter if I start a business, if I start a huge new project that I'm not sure whether I'm qualified to do, if I start a podcast or whatever, no matter what happens, it will never be as bad as that. I think I pulled myself out of that.
I was just going to say, I think it's crazy as well, because you hear so many people that are so happy or seem so happy, or you see friends, and it's funny, sometimes I see people that are like so happy, and I was like, kind of like, wonder what you went through. Like, I wonder what happened to you. Like, you always hear, I heard Joe Rogan talk about it. Some of his best friends that he's got, like the funniest people, like they've had some real trauma, like real bad shit happen. I think it's like you said, a lot of people, like they've been there and they're like, well, it's going to be better than this, and I'm not going back there. So it's like you almost need to go to that end of the spectrum to realize how green the grass is, or how good the air smells. It's like you've been to those depths where you just like, you don't want to live, or you don't want to be here, and you know how shit life can be. So like once you've been there, you're like, well, I don't want that. I want the good stuff. And then that's when I think you come out of it. And then you see a lot of people that can fight through it and can see light at the end of the tunnel and can come out of it, and then they're just like, oh, life is amazing, like what was I thinking, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never do want to go back to that place, because it is, yeah, it's just terrible. It doesn't help anyone, it doesn't help yourself, doesn't help your family, friends, no one. So, and it's easy to say like come out of it, but like you just need to like really know yourself and kind of know to like ask for help for someone. Like that's the thing. It's like go to someone, go to a friend, go to someone you trust, and just be like, hey, I'm not coping very well, I need help.
Yeah,
like
100%.
and then and like I guarantee you, like they'll help you. Like if you need it, if you go to the right person that you know will be there for you. I think it's like that's the thing. People just don't feel like they've got anyone. It's just like if you don't have anyone, call someone. Like there's a helpline. There's all these things. Like there's people out there that all they want to do is help people. And if you're someone that needs help, sing out. And I'm sure that someone will put their hand up and give you, like, even if it's just a little bit of advice, something that can help you like move forward.
So you just said about talking to people. One of the things we said we were going to talk about on this episode was what I call the 100% gene. So post-drug addiction, post-manic depression, I ended up in counselling, and a few sessions in, this lady says to me, you've got the 100% gene. And it's something I've always kind of been conscious of. I didn't have a name for it. Like I'm 100% into something, or I'm zero. I've never gone to the pub for one or two drinks. I just, well, what's the point in going for one or two drinks? If we're going to get smashed, you know? If I'm into mountain bikes, I can't just go to a trail centre once a month. I want to be racing downhill every weekend. I assume that athletes have this as well to get to the top. If you want to be the best at something nowadays, you've got to have that commitment, haven't you? Yeah.
You call it the 100% thing. I call it paralyzed by perfection.
Right.
I think it's something where a lot of people, they either want to be perfect at it or they don't do it at all.
Yeah.
And it stops you from actually doing a lot of stuff, because I'm like, nothing's ever really going to be perfect. Like everything's going to be hard or go wrong, or you're not going to be good at it. I think a lot of people getting into stuff is like, oh, I want it to be perfect. So they're like, oh, but I don't put the effort into it to be perfect, so I'm just not going to do it. I'm like, just start doing something, and it's you're gonna fall off, you're gonna scrape your knee, you're gonna lose money, you're gonna do this, but like then that's like we said, when you learn and you actually grow from that. But I know with a lot of things, like even with the podcast for a long time, I was like, well, if I do it, I want it all to be perfect, I want it to be like this, and I want it to be like that. So I just never did it. Because I was like, oh, that's a lot of work and I don't want to do that. When realistically, all I need to do is buy a microphone, plug it into my laptop, and go up to some person and go, hey, what are you doing? And like, that's all like podcasting is. Like, obviously there's a bit of depending at the level you want to do it at and like how far you want to push it. But at the end of the day, like just get a microphone and chat to people. Like you got to start somewhere. But yeah, it's like, I think a lot of people are paralyzed by themselves looking at something as being too hard, but they only make it as hard as it is in their mind. Like, and you can put as much effort into something as you really want.
I think some of it's kind of inbuilt though. Like when I remember the counsellor's advice to me, I was like, well, so how do I fix this? Like, and she said, oh, you need to try living in grayscale. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And it was like, you need to just go to a trail centre once a month, or you need to leave a project half finished and just come back to it. And I lasted about 2 weeks. I tried, but it was almost like, you know, there's things about you that are inbuilt that you can't control. Like if you're gay, you can't control that, for example. It was almost like, this is inbuilt in me. This is who I am.
You couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And how long and that is like, because that's what I was asking about the podcast before. It's just like, what are you going to give up? And I think it's that whole thing. It's like, well, if you're going to do something, it's like, so what do you mean you couldn't go into it if you only half-assed it? You've got to go all in and give it your full attention, your full effort, your full time.
Whatever comes across. I don't think I have the perfect thing that you talked about. I think I have the, like, if I struggle to do two things at once. So like if I'm working, I'm working. I can't, my wife can work and, how can I put this? She can stop and go for a coffee in the afternoon and then come back and work some more. If I'm working, I'm going to work. I'm going to work all day. Yeah. And then I come home and then I think about work when I'm at home. And then on the weekends, I stop work, say, for example, and I don't think about it all weekend. But then I'm 100% into doing whatever I'm doing that weekend.
Yeah. No, I do have that kind of personality. Like if I start doing something around my house, whether it be like painting or putting something in, and it might be a 3-day job, I might be like, nah, let's just do it in a day. And then that's just all I'm doing. Like, I won't eat properly. I won't stretch. I won't do this. I'm like, I'll just paint the house. Like, it's just like, I get in that mindset. I think a lot of athletes do that because when they do something, they're just like, well, I want to, all in everything I've got. And I think it can be like a two-edged sword, and you can get a lot done, but you can also, like you said, you can miss out on a lot of other bits that life has to offer. And I think, it's like, it all comes back to balance. Like, I don't think you should be 100%, like, have your full attention into stuff, but I don't think you should be 100% at anything. I think you should have a balance of a heap of different things that you've worked out within yourself that make you the whole person that you are, whether that be like good food, stretching, exercise, DJing, being around your parents, being around your animal, like everything like that. Like, it makes you up, but you just need to be, you like, you know yourself better than anyone else, but you need to know how much percent into each one of those things that you need to give for yourself to feel whole. And I think once you do that, that's when you get your happiness from, and that's where you grow and expand and be the person you really should be.
So you didn't come over for the shortened 2020 season. Nope. How hard a decision was that? Because, having finished top 10, you'd have been protected, wouldn't you?
Yeah, TV time all year, baby. I would have been on that big screen. It would have been awesome. But I honestly didn't think it was going to happen. I was talking to Jack Moy. He'd come over, and I had a conversation with him, and he was pretty much the one that made my decision, because he was at an enduro, and he's like, dude, it's all getting shut down. Like, that's when COVID was kind of kicking off, and I'm honestly shocked that it did go ahead. And even in Australia, like, they were saying, like, if we left, like, we wouldn't be able to get back in. Then you got to do 2 weeks quarantine, and my entire team had actually got, like, I think half of them had COVID. So in my mindset, it was like, I could fly to Europe, get COVID, quarantine for 2 weeks, miss a World Cup, miss both of them possibly. All right, so I've missed 2 World Cups. Might get one in, because it was only, I think there was 4, but two of it. Oh, well, 3. But yeah. So I had those. So I'm like, I've missed half the season already. I've gotten COVID, and now I'm going to fly home and have to quarantine for another 2 weeks. So it's a month of quarantining. Everyone's telling me it's not going to happen, and I could miss it even if it does happen. I was like, this is just, and also at the time, like, we've just been in and out of lockdown like that many times that, like, there's no structure to, like, training at all at this point. Like, I'm living up at Falls Creek in the snow at this point. Like, my life's in kind of shambles of where I was going to live. I was like, it's just, everything was just really hard at the time. It was like, Australia, was going to lockdown every second week, so you couldn't even drive places. Like, if you weren't going to get medical advice or food, or I think you could do certain exercise for like an hour. Like, it was all so strict. I was just like, and you want people to train in that environment and then leave that country. Like, we were still doing better than a lot of countries in the sense of, like, actually getting cases. And this is back when it was a real alarming number of, like, and you didn't know what it was as well. So there was like the fear of actually like a health risk involved as well. So there was a lot of factors that came into play, and I ended up calling it and saying, hey, like, I'm just going to stay. And Scott was lucky. I was lucky enough that Scott gave me a media budget, and we went and filmed a video called Training Ground, which was kind of like what they did with, instead of putting into me traveling over, which I really enjoyed. And I got a big kick out of doing something like that. So it's like the whole close the door, open a window kind of scenario. But I learned a lot from being home over that time. I actually really enjoyed being in Australia for a winter. It was the first time in 8 years, and it was eye-opening to see that, like, hey, if this whole racing thing goes away, I can still be very happy, and this life isn't so bad being in Oz, and I know I'll find something else to do that's going to give me a lot of happiness and enjoyment. So it's like, I think I took away this thing, because for so long when you do something, it's like you can put your happiness into that thing. And I think I was so like, oh, if racing fails, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to stress out. And I think you see a lot of people lose their identity. Well, they feel like they lose their identity, and then they get into alcohol or drugs and kind of lose themselves. So I kind of was okay with just hanging at home, and I looked at all these other things I could put my time and effort into. And I think, when racing does stop for me, I'm just going to fall into a heap of other things, like even like the podcast thing, like I really enjoy. I actually want to get into writing. I'd love to try and do some more writing, and one day, like, a massive goal of mine would be to write a book. I've got a few ideas of what I'd want to put into it, but it's like something that as a kid, I think I would look at myself as a kid and say that's impossible. So now I always try and like to prove myself wrong. So doing something like that, I think would be cool. And even doing coaching and stuff like that, like I really want to set my house up so it's like a really cool creative space. I've got I've got a shed I want to extend out the back of my house where I want to put like a creative, like almost like an art studio and like a visual designs kind of studio, and then have like a separate room that was for podcasting or music recording, and downstairs have like a gym and like do training there, and just make it like a place where if you come to that kind of place, it's like you don't know what you want to do, but we've got all the tools to then like do something as a creative person, like singing, like dancing, like anything like that. Like I don't want it to be like, oh, you come here and we just do this. It's like, what do you want to do? What do you want to better yourself in? What do you want to learn? What do you want to know? And like you come there, and obviously if you build a reputation like that, I think a lot of like-minded people would come, and I think it would just be a really cool community of people kind of grow themselves in whatever aspect of life they want to grow themselves in. So like I look at stuff like that and that excites me now. So I think when you've got stuff like that in the back of your mind, it takes a lot of pressure off you to perform as an athlete, because I think when you put that pressure on, you don't ride to your full ability. Like I still really love racing and still want to do it, but when that day ends, it's like, all right, next chapter. Let's see how far we can go with that. And I think I'll get a lot out of that as well.
I remember when I told people I was giving up DJing, they were like, what? Because that was a lot of people's dreams. But I remember all the way through, I was like, I don't want this to define me. I don't want this to be the only thing I'm ever remembered for or that I ever do. Do you feel the same about racing?
Well, I think if people look at it, it's just like you've got to look at your core values and what you want out of life. Because it's like if you want to travel the world and race your bike, then I've got the best job in the world. If you just had a little girl and she's at home and you don't get to see her for 4 months and you come back and she doesn't remember your name, have you got the best job in the world? Or is your values in seeing that kid grow up and being a supportive part of their life? So it's just really just like you've got to look at your values and what you want out of this life, and no one knows what you want except you. Like obviously that internal voice like we talked about, and I think you've just got to really check in with that every now and again and say, hey, why am I doing this? And if the reasons aren't because I absolutely love it and this is the best thing that I could be doing with my life right now, if that's not the answer, then hey, maybe start looking for something else to do. And I've had points where I've kind of thought like that, and so, or maybe I want to do this and that. And even to this day, like I question certain things about like why, like what's my why behind this thing? Like what do I get out of it? And sometimes I look at it as like, it's not quite the same level as it was, and this kind of gets a bit more enjoyment here. So I think it's just finding that balance of, okay, well, how do we get everything to work in unison and make it all happen? But yeah, it's not, I don't think everyone wants to loves their job every day of the year. It's like there's always highs and lows of things, and I think you've just got to weigh up what you really want to do and look at all the factors like time, money, effort, like longevity. All these things come into play, and once you work all that out and you go, hey, this is what I want to do, then you do it. And I don't think there should be any regret in that, but yeah, just know yourself well enough to make the right decision.
I think a lot of people get stuck chasing other people's dreams as well.
Yeah.
You know, like they're doing it because they think they should rather than because they actually want to. That could be like a kid who's racing downhill who doesn't really want to do it, but their dad's pushing them or whatever to do it. Or it can be loads of different things. But I think
it's funny. It's funny now because I went to like these last 2 races and I've been helping out a young kid at the races now just with lines and setting up his bike and a few little bits and pieces. His name's Zach Bradley, and he did really well at the first race at Buller. And dude, I was more excited for him doing well, that I gave him these few little tips and tricks and helped him. I was more excited for him. He got 4th and he was just off the podium, but he was really he was happy to be there. And he was just off there, and he'd done some little changes that I was like, hey, maybe go here and think about your breathing and all this. And he listened, and it was really cool to see that effect rub off on him. And seeing that, his 4th was way more exciting and made me feel way better than my first. The first was oh, sweet. Okay, cool. This, it wasn't bad or anything, but seeing that kid achieve that goal and seeing how he progressed through the weekend, I was like, that's a win. That's sweet. And I always think of that because eventually I'd like to get into coaching and be able to help people and mentor people in that way, because I think I've got a lot to give, and I think I can articulate my way through situations that kids can really get a lot out of. So I'd love to do that in the future, but yeah, it's just kind of when do I pull the trigger on it? And also, if you become world champion, I feel like your voice gets heard a bit louder by a lot more people. So that's still a goal, but it's more of a goal now to set myself up a bigger platform than moving forward and going to that second chapter of my life.
How's Scott been with you through all this? Because
they've been good.
Yeah, I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but Scott's a brand that's really well known for racing. They've got Nino's shirt has ridden for them for a number of years. And if one of their riders is saying, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, I don't want numbers on a piece of paper to define my happiness anymore, or stuff like that. Is there any pushback from them saying, well, hey, hold on a minute, we're paying you money here for numbers on a piece of paper? Have you had any of that? Or?
No real pushback, because I think they really understand the message I'm trying to send there. Like, I don't think they think I'm saying, hey, like, I don't want to get results, because I still want to get results. But my big thing with when I said that was, I don't want those results to just define my happiness. When like I said before, like, the whole experience is what you should be happy for. Like, I'm just happy to ride for Scott in the first place. And like, I want to represent their brand and be a good ambassador. And I think if you've got genuine people that ride for you and carry themselves a certain way and do that for the brand, that gives the brand more power in that sense. And obviously, if you can do that and win races, that's obviously a bigger bonus. But like, I've referenced him a few times, but Valentino Rossi, like, he was still the fan favorite and he wasn't winning races, but you look at how he carried himself and who he was as a person, like that. I think that's a great example, as you don't have to win races to sell motorcycles or push bikes. And like, that's the whole thing, is that they're trying to sell bikes, they're a business. And I'm like, if I can be someone that's, I feel like, uplifting and positive and gives people a new way of looking at something and like it just makes them feel good, really. Like, I'm creating a feeling, I think, in people by what the words I say and how I say them, and certain, I guess, aspects I look at it in life. And I think there's value in that as well. And if Scott came to me and said they didn't want me to talk about this stuff and how I felt and how I think you can look at things, I honestly wouldn't want to ride for a brand that would try and silence me in that way. It's like, it's not like I'm going out saying like, I'm not going to get good results and I'll show you how happy I am. It's like, I'm going to go give it my best. I'm going to go give it my best shot and hopefully I get good results. But if I don't, like, life's still good and we can be happy and we don't have to throw a tissue fit and throw our goggles at the finish line. It's just like, you can kind of have your cake and eat it in a way with like I said before, it's like looking at it as an experience-based mindset, not a result-based mindset. Because like with a result-based mindset, it's either good or bad. It's like with an experience-based mindset, the whole thing's good because you enjoy every part of it, not just the end bit.
And you're not in control of it, really, are you? If you go on a results-based mindset, it's somebody else. Other people can have a great day and beat you. It's not like you can control. You can't make yourself win.
No, you can't. Like, the thing is with the reality we live in, it's like you can't. You control very little. You like to think you control a lot more than you do, but like, you walk down the street and you have no idea who's going to bump into you. You have no idea what's going to happen, what noises you're going to hear. It's like you just react to what happens. And I think it's when something is out of your control and you see people freak out, it's because they don't know how to deal with their reaction. It's like, it's how you react to that thing. It's not the thing itself that is actually what you're freaking out. It's your reaction and you're not comfortable with what's happening. Like, the biggest thing is like, you look at COVID and it's just like, some people absolutely thrive through that and some people it has destroyed them. And I understand for different reasons and people dealing with it in different ways, but it's like you control the way you look at everything and the way you react to everything. And it's like, if you go into something and go, this is awesome, I can spend more time with my kids now, I can focus on this, life can be pretty good. Or if you go, I've just lost my job and I can't do this and I'm going to lose my motorbike and my life's a ruin, and then you go into drugs, I'm like, okay, now your life sucks. But you made that decision. No one else did. It's like, yes, something happened, was outside of your control, but that's how you react and deal with that, which is going to really determine your fate. So I think with a lot of that stuff, it's just like, just take it as it comes and take a big breath and go head on through it and do, like, that's the whole thing, is knowing yourself enough to know what you should be doing. And if you know yourself well enough, you go, okay, well, let's do this. And bad times don't last if you don't let them. Like, if you keep pushing forwards, like if you're resilient and you keep pushing forward and you keep doing the things you need to do, bad times don't last. You get through it. But yeah, if you just keep your head down and mope around and my life sucks and go through that mindset, like, that can last a while. And no one wants to be around that person either. So
definitely. So
snap out of it.
2021, 6th in Leger, and then results in the 20s and 30s. Was it hard getting back up to pace after basically having 2 years between World Cups?
Oh, that was not the best way to start. I actually felt it was surprising at Leo Gang. Just before quali, I wasn't protected. I was like 64th or whatever. I was nervous as hell. Like, we're coming back into a race season with World Cups. I was like, oh shit, this could. And the Leo Gang's not my favorite track either, but I was in the start gate and it started raining. It was like Marie and I think Connor Fear and a few guys that hadn't raced, so that we were all kind of bunched together. And they threw us at the end of the top 60 anyway. I'm about 3 or 4 riders before I'm about to drop and it just starts raining. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm not protected. I'm about to ride in the rain. The top 60 have just all gone down in the dry. Like, oh, this is going to be interesting. So I'm like, all right, breathe, do your marks, put the roll-offs on. I was like, breathe, hit your lines, don't push it, just ride smooth, ride consistent. Like, you'll be able to qualify if you do that. Anyway, head off. Nothing, didn't feel amazing, felt good. Like, I just hit my lines, rode smooth. Anyway, I got about just towards the bottom of the track and Charlie Harrison had crashed and broken his arm. So they had a red flag and I was like, fuck, damn it. But I was like, whatever. It's like red flag. Yeah. Shit happens kind of thing. Anyway, I went past Charlie, made sure he was okay, kept going. I get to the bottom, go through the finish line, and my team manager comes up to me. He's like, "You were sitting 5th," and he's like, "What do you mean?" It was like, "You were sitting 5th at like the split after the fire rate," and the pedal, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "I just did the rain. I was sitting 5th," and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, I was like, chest comes out, and I'm like, yeah, we're doing it. And anyway, so it was honestly my undoing in the end, really, because then I went back up, and it was. I think someone else crashed, although it was taking forever. So I got put at the end of the qualifying, and it was about an hour and a half went by and the sun came out and the track started to drive. So I took the mud tires off and put dry tires on. I was like, I was 5th and it was wet before. It's dry now and I've got dry tires. Like, I could win qualifying right now. Like, I'm like, oh, and I got in my own head about it and started thinking about that. Yeah. So I put dry tires on and go out and just start attacking. Like, definitely felt better. I think I was 6th at the first split, and then I got through the wooded bit and I just slipped on a root and just washed the front out and just went over the bars and crashed, headed in the ground, like pick up the bike, try and pick up pace again, get towards the bottom, go off the track again, hit a tree, stop, get back on the track, get to the bottom. Ended up, I think I was like 64th or 65th or something, like just outside of qualifying, and I was just like, you blew it. You blew it. And it was all because I got in my own head and I got ahead of myself. I didn't like the first run. I was like, just be smooth, hit your marks, be clean, and it worked. And then I went out and I was like, I could win, I could do this. And then I got in my own head and I pushed past I got greedy. I got greedy pretty much, and it bit me on the ass. But that got right in my head, because then when we went to Leger a couple of weeks later, it was honestly, that's probably the worst World Cup I've ever been to. Like, in terms of my mental state, like, I just couldn't get in a good flow. Like, I'd get so nervous. And I remember going up for qualifying and I was like, I just felt terrible. I was like, I can't not qualify again. I've got too much pressure. I've been away for almost 2 years and I've just missed the first race. I need to qualify. And I just rode so tight and so shit. And I was like, what? Like, I got to the bottom and I was like, I don't want to do this sport and I don't want to race if this is how I feel. I felt that bad. I was like, it's not worth it. There's no part of this job that is worth feeling like this. Anyway, because I rode so I qualified like 43rd or something, but luckily because of that, I kind of beat the rain again. Yeah. And I had a semi. It wasn't great again, but it was just that whole nervous thing. And I almost crashed like three times, and it was just so sloppy. I got to the bottom and I remember looking at my team manager and praying. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy to be alive, because it was slick as anything. Because we'd practiced in the morning in the dry, and then the rain came down and we just had this slip and slide. And I just remember getting down. I was just so happy to get down, but then the heavens opened up and I was lucky enough to get 6th. But yeah, again, like Mont Saint Anne, it was a weather dependent race. But yeah, it was just nice to get back on the board again, because that like Leo Gang and then Leger, I was just like, it was just a bit of a nightmare for me, really. And then I got 6th, and then it was weird as well, because everyone was coming up to me like, congratulations, you got 6th, it's awesome. And I'm like, rained. And I feel super uncomfortable in that situation, because I was like, I didn't get 6th and I rode terribly. Like, imagine you have you do like, and it's like self-criticism, I know, but like you do something that is nowhere near your standard, and then everyone comes and congratulates you for it. And I'm like, I didn't ride well. I just got lucky. And it's just like, I always felt really uncomfortable and a bit awkward after, because I was like, yeah, but I was like, yeah, oh well, we got out of the way. And then, yeah, it was nice to get some points, but it would be nice to do it the right way.
So we couldn't do a show about mindset without talking about Snowshoe. Last race of 2021. Loic said, I want to win seeding. I want to be the last man down the hill. He comes down and absolutely smashes it, wins the overall, and says, I can only go to a couple of places I only got to that place a couple of times a year. Do you think ultimately head game is what separates the top riders?
Oh, for sure. It's I think it's 70% mental, 30% physical. Probably like it's always funny. Like you see when someone gets on that roll and they start winning and they just don't stop. And I was like, they just didn't get fitter during the season. Their mind got sharper. They got that confidence. They got that belief. They got that what'd you say? Oh, I know what you almost say. Like it's like you know something that no one else does. It's like you just have it in the back of your mind that like you just know you can pull the trigger on certain things, and you're out of this confidence that you've built. And it's like this belief. Like I feel like people have confidence, but I think it's like enough confidence builds belief. It's like you really truly believe you can win. Yeah. It's like you can win, and you push this little bit harder and you find this extra gear, and it's like, that's all mental. That's all in your head. That's all comes from the preparation you do, the people you talk to, the food you eat. Everything builds this little bit of confidence, which I think at the end of confidence is belief. Like if you're that confident enough, you believe you can do something, you can do it. And I think in a season where like you see someone like Luke, it's like, I think at the end there when he qualified first, he got that belief. He's like, hey, I can do this. And that belief can push you forward to actually to win and do those incredible things. Like I said, after I got second at Mont Saint Anne, I had the belief that I could do it. And then after that, I rode better. Yeah. I didn't really change that much on my bike. I didn't get that much fitter. I just believed I could. And that's what I think, I think the whole podcast, we keep touching on it, but having good mentors and people around you to push you and encourage you and make you believe that you can do something. Because if you do believe you can do something, you can do it. You can start to put the groundwork in to make that happen. And I think having people around you that also believe in you, it just keeps that fire burning. Like you're going to have days when you're going to be down, and if you've got people around you, and especially like a good team or someone at a World Cup like that, like I know Luke's got an amazing team around him that obviously push him and believe in him, and especially Jackie's mechanic. So I'm sure if he got to that point and qualified first, and you've got a good support team around you, and it's just like, hey, we can make magic happen now. And that's obviously what he did, but he's like the mental strength to do that. It was so cool to watch. I was like, he's such a good dude as well. Like Luke Bruni, he's a legend. He's such a good ambassador for the sport. And I'm so glad that one of our best riders, if not the best rider at the time, he carries himself the way he does, and he speaks the way he does, and he's the person he is, because he's such a great ambassador for just cycling in general. And it's cool we have him at like the forefront of our sport. I think it's really special to have someone that's of his character. I think that's we're very lucky. I said
before on the pod that if you look at the results, if we fast forward 10 years into the future, you're going to look at the results and think we're in a period of Luke Bruni domination. Like he's won, is he 6 times world champion if you take the juniors? Is he 6?
I think I'm not sure if he took both juniors or one. I think he might have. I know he took, because he took one because I was racing him in 2012, so he definitely won one. And then I think he's won 15. He didn't won 16. Danny won 16.
Yeah, 17.
17, 18. Where was 18? Lenzerheide, yeah, 18. And I'm not sure, maybe 5, something like that. But too many.
And then 2 overalls. So yeah, as well. So that's pretty dominant, isn't it?
It's up there. He's up there.
It doesn't feel like he's dominant.
No, he kind of just comes in and does his thing and gets out. Like he's always he's always there. He's like, he might not be as dominant as maybe as just say Gwyn has been, but he's like hasn't ever really slumped as far as Gwyn, I guess, has slumped down as well. He's kind of always just been there or thereabouts. Like Gwyn was obviously dominating, but then obviously he fell kind of off that top step for a little bit and had a bit of a struggle. And I think like Luke's never really done that. He's never really fallen that far down the ladder.
No, I wouldn't even make, weirdly, like if you think about this season coming in, it's hard to pick, but I wouldn't make him the favourite.
Yeah, it's funny. You never kind of do, but he kind of it's always like, I think Loris is faster. I think for outright speed, Marie and Thibaut are probably the quickest.
Yeah,
but I don't think they can hold it together quite for a whole season. Like obviously, Marie has, and he can, but I just feel like Luke's more likely to hold it together for a whole year. I think even Loris, Thibaut, and Marie, on their days when they're going. I think Amaury, when he's on, no one can touch him. I think Luke's more maniacal and will like slowly just creep through the season. Even Loris to a certain extent. I think Loris can hang with, like, he's all out speed's pretty hard to go near as well. And I think he's I'm surprised Loris hasn't won an overall, to be honest.
Loris
I think
just needs to win he needs to win a world championships or an overall, and then I think he might dominate for a bit. Yeah,
because I think he should be the guy, to be honest, because he's got the consistency that Loic has, and I think he is faster than Loic on his best day. I think if everyone had their best day, I think it would probably go like Amaury, Loris, Thibaut, Loic in that. So it's funny they're all French, but it's hard to say best day. But I think just for like all out speed, it was just like, yeah. But it's just funny how like you don't have to be the fastest to win an overall. You just got to be the smartest, I guess.
So you're with Scott again for this season. Was it you signed with them in 2019? Was it like a 3-year deal with an extension or a couple of 2-year deals?
It was a 2-year deal. So we signed a 2-year deal at the start, and obviously I did 19, and they were really happy with how it all went. And then 2020 didn't obviously work out, but then they re-signed me for another 2-year going into 2021, just because I think they were happy obviously with the 2019 year. I did exactly what they wanted, and then even just like a social media presence and doing videos and stuff, they were quite happy with it, and I guess how I was to deal with. So yeah, they put me on again. So this is last kind of contract year. I've got an option, but who knows what will happen in 2020. But yeah, staying with them for now, and yeah, it's been a good team to ride for. I've been really enjoying it. It's a bit tricky sometimes with the language barrier, with a lot of it being French, but I should probably just put in more effort to learn, to be honest. It's one of those things. It's like, what am I going to give up to learn French? And I haven't found the thing yet. So, but I do want to learn. I think it would be quite cool to learn another language, especially when I've got so many friends that are from France, and I do live there for a little bit. So it would make sense to me, but we just haven't quite done it yet.
So what are the hopes and dreams for 2022? Have you been national champ yet?
Nah, Troy normally gets it every year. I think goals are be happy, grow as a person. I think this throws it down. Everyone just looks at result based things, and it's just like, yeah, happiness. Have good connections with a lot of my friends. Have good conversations with a lot of my friends. Love to grow the podcast more. Love to travel the world without being too restricted. I look at, like, I just traveled from Tasmania yesterday, and I look at that was something that a year ago you couldn't do. So just stuff like that, like trying to find, I guess, happiness in smaller things, like more mundane things that you might look at as being something that's not that important, that other people would look at as being the goal or like the dream in a way. So just trying to find that in more things and enjoying myself. Obviously with the bike racing, I want to do well. I want to get back in the top 10. I want to kind of just be consistent again. I just and enjoy it, really enjoy it, and enjoy being there and racing my bike. Like, if as long as I can do that, it's like I said, it goes hand in hand with good results. But I don't like to focus so much on, I want to get top 5 or top 10 or all this. I want to go enjoy racing my bike, because if I'm not enjoying it, I'm there and I'm getting good results, but I don't enjoy it. It's like, well, why am I there? So I think I need to look more at, hey, I want to enjoy being there. I want to enjoy being present at these World Cups and hopefully inspiring people to push themselves to the limit and maybe a little bit past that, and hopefully, spread some good energy along the way and get people motivated in whatever aspect of that life they need to get motivated in. So try and do all those things, and cool. Hopefully bring my girlfriend over this year, which would be really cool. She hasn't left Australia before, so if I can go share that with her, I think that's going to be pretty amazing, and kind of take someone along that hasn't seen this side of my life, and it's pretty exciting. It's pretty interesting. So to have someone else there to go along with it, I think that's going to be pretty cool and open her eyes to a new way of living and traveling will be pretty cool. So I think I'll get a lot of enjoyment out of that as well.
Excellent. Okay, well, look, thanks for doing this show. It's been a bit of a different approach, but hopefully people have found it interesting and people will get something out of it. We've got a bit of a revised format for season 4 with another rider joining the podcast team for some pre-race shows. And we would love to have you doing back on once again once we get into the season, if you're keen.
Always keen. Always love a good chat. Always love a good chat. It's funny. Even when I'm like, I was thinking, I was like, because I've set this up, so I've got like cameras and I've got the mic arm and the recorder. And I was just like, oh, it's just nice when you actually like do a podcast with someone else, because it's like, what would you say? This, you kind of know, I don't know, I feel like podcasting, it's different than talking in a way. Like you understand what questions to give, what answers to receive. It's like, it just flows better. So, and it's easy for me because whenever I do a podcast, I'm like, oh, this is easy. Like when I was trying to do my own, I'm trying to swap cameras around. I'm trying to ask questions and set up mics and stuff. So whenever I go on someone's, I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is like all the heavy lifting's done. I just get to come sit down and just have a conversation.
A few questions.
Yeah, this is the easy part. I love it. I really enjoy it. And like I said, I feel like a lot of people, like it's massive what people get out of podcasting, and you hear so many people like will talk to you and be like, oh, I heard this really cool thing in a podcast and now I've changed this thing in my life, or I've done this. And it's just like, I feel like it's hard because a lot of time you can multitask, whether you're running or exercising or driving, and just put it in and listen, and it can spark an idea inside you that can change a lot of things. And I think that's important to have.
I think it's a bit nuts. Like it's to be getting like 10,000 plus downloads of something that's long form. You know, like it's weird. There's like this. If you do something really quick on TikTok or Instagram stories, that's like a 20-second, 10-second thing that gets millions of views, and then these long form things are getting like tens of thousands of listens, and they're hours long. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's the whole, like I did think about that. I think it's like, because it's actually a lot of the time when you do listen to podcasts, it's like a multitasking thing. Like it's very rarely you put on a podcast, sit down and watch the visual, or because a lot of the time, like I'll be like you're cycling or running or driving or something as well. And it's like, it helps you kind of disconnect from the actual reality you're in. Where I think with the TikTok stuff, it's like, you've only got this 15-second window because it's like that's all your brain attention wants to like visually see and like be involved in. But it is funny, there's no middle ground anymore. No. It's either long or short. And it's just like it'd be good to not be so caught up in long just quick
like
hits of
like the team videos. They've all gone, haven't they? You know, the 7 to 10 minute videos that when This Is Petey was around, that was the thing that in downhill that everyone wanted. 10-15 minutes of Josh and Petey and Greg.
I think it's a little sad in a way, because but it's kind of weird, is sometimes with vlogging as well, some people will just watch half an hour as well, and it's like I feel like sometimes like the vlogging thing, it's like it's a bit boring. Like it just kind of draws out, where those team videos were like actually quite punchy and had a lot of, like if you've got 3 or 4 riders, like that's not that many minutes on each guy if you're cutting through it, plus an intro and a outro. So I'm like, bring that stuff back. Like I used to love watching Clay Porter stuff, and like you watch a 45 to an hour long movie and absolutely love it. Now kids see like a you hit the corner really cool, and it's like, oh cool, next. And it's just like, there's no real substance in that. There's no real depth. No. It's just kind of it's just a shiny toy that you get sick of like pretty quick and want to go do something else.
100%. Best of luck for 2022. I hope you can smash it. And for anybody who's listened to the show who's struggling at the minute, my advice would be just to get in touch with someone, talk to someone about it, even if you're feeling just a bit different, not necessarily thinking you might be depressed or whatever, but if you're just feeling a bit different, talk to somebody.
It's funny as well, because the amount of times you probably open up to someone and say you're feeling a certain way, they'd probably be like, oh shit, I was feeling the same way. The thing is, it's like sometimes it's like not even, you might not even get help out of it, but you might actually help someone else. So that's the thing. It's like you might go into it thinking, oh, I need all this help, and then you might be able to help someone. And then in that sense as well, it's like that will make you feel better because you've actually done a positive thing for someone that you've obviously cared about enough to open up to. So that in itself can, it's like, you wouldn't think it'd be the cure, but you could be the cure for yourself and someone else. So yeah, just chat to people.
Wise words. Let's close it there. Thanks to the sponsors of the show: Hope Technology, JTech Suspension, Revolution Bike Park, Ride Southern Spain, Schwalbe, and SingleTrackWorld.com. As always, if you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you've got a sec, please drop us a review. Alternatively, please give us a follow on Instagram at Making Up the Numbers Racing or Facebook.com/Making Up the Numbers. That brings season 3 of the podcast to a close. Thanks very much for listening. We'll be back with season 4 very soon, and we've got some amazing shows planned. And as I said earlier, we've got a new co-host joining us for some pre-race shows. We'll be back very soon.